Thanks.
Yeah.
Hi.
It just depends on what the wind is going on the weather. Not all the time.
Mister?
I'll start saying
Yeah, DNR has formed to do it online.
really?
They're trying to track
What's that?
the Missouri Department of
Okay.
So for Missouri Combat versus West Lake
Okay, we still have people coming in, so we're going to give it another 5 minutes and then we're going to get started. Okay guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay, hi, welcome. Lots of new people here. Really happy to see that. For those of you that don't know, I'm Karen Nickel. This is Dawn Chapman, co-founders of Just Moms STL. We're really, really glad you're all here. We have a lot to talk about. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Maybe.
Debbie? Here we go.
Dawn just informed me that we don't have a prayer, so we won't be. We don't have a prayer. So, unless there's one of the sisters in the house.
It's already in there. It's standard.
Jamie, come on up. Now we have a prayer. See how that works? All right. Dear Lord, we come before you tonight and we just pray that you will bless this meeting and just give us clarity on how to move forward and just give us wisdom on what to do to get this West Lake Landfill cleaned up. And in Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Thank you. Okay. So, how many of you are new to this meeting? Wow. Wow. Okay, great. So if you don't know, we have a couple of Facebook pages. One is the West Lake Landfill Facebook group. We are now up to almost 22,000 members on that page. We also have an STL Glowing Strong Memorial group. That's a place that people go just to share pictures or vent or share stories about your loved ones or whatever. Facebook page, Just Moms STL. Before Atomic Homefront came out, we were barely to the 5,000 mark, and now we're getting close to 11,000 in likes for Just Moms. So that's great to see. We also have a website, and you can get to it by justmomsstl.org. It has all of our information on there. One of the most important things is for everyone to please, 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 if you haven't signed up already for the newsletter, you'll get it at least once a month. And also if there's any emergencies or any type of meeting that we might call, you know, just out of the ordinary, we'll put those on through the newsletter. Kristen Camuso, right back there. Kristen runs the Humans of Westlake page. I believe she does not allow, you allow more than just Westlake people, right? Okay, so anybody that's been affected or just wants to get their photos taken, she does a great job. These are a bunch of her photos up here. And then she does a little story about your story, and she's very personable and very professional, and she does a really good job. So if anybody is interested in telling this story through your own personal story, through photograph, please reach out to Kristen. The odor. I know the past few days there's been a lot of people reporting about the odor. Are a lot of you getting the odor? Anybody recently? Okay, there is the Missouri Department of Natural Resources has a form that you can fill out. You can get to it by our website or our Facebook pages. And you just go on there and give your information and let them know that you're experiencing the odor. And they will send someone out to check and see where the odor is coming from if they can tell. If it's after hours, you can call this phone number up here and leave a voice message. Or you can just call Monday through Friday and talk to DNR direct. I know some of you were asking about these t-shirts. You can now order these t-shirts through Big Frog, and you order directly through them. We're not dealing with the t-shirts anymore with the orders or anything.
You can put it on anything.
You can, so you can put the logo on a bag or a book bag or a blanket. So go through them if you guys want to order anything. Events. The Franciscan Sisters of Mary have a prayer vigil that they hold the second and fourth Wednesday of the month. And they are at the abandoned gas station that's kind of across from the landfill. They've been doing that for 4 years. So if anybody's interested, they're always happy to see participants. The Westlake Community Advisory Group, also known as the CAG, will meet April 9th at the Machinist Hall. And Earth Day. They've asked us if we want to have a booth for Earth Day. We need volunteers that would want to take that on, it is April 21st and April 22nd. And basically, you just man a booth with all of our information, and it's a good way to get the word out. They have a big crowd.
It's also sponsored by Republic Services.
Oh, and it's also sponsored by Republic Services.
One of the sponsors.
So, Earth Day. So if that, I don't know if that makes you really want to go do it, or, and I think they have a parade.
Yes.
And I know the last couple of years they walked in everybody walks in the parade, and I know that the West Lake group and MCE, I think, stopped right in front of Republic's booth and just stood there with all their signs and whatnot. So
They are showing a
they are also showing Atomic Homefront at Washington University on that same day, April 7th and April 14th at 3 p.m. So if you haven't had the chance to see Atomic Homefront, you can catch it there. So there is a fundraiser set up for Just Moms STL through California Pizza Kitchen. That's going to be on March 28th. They will donate 20% back to the Just Moms organization. Do you have to sign up for that?
No, I think you can just go there.
Okay. Tentatively, our next meeting is April 19th, right here, 6:30. That may change. Dawn and I might be going to DC on that day, so we're just going to kind of play it by ear and see what happens.
You'll send an email.
I'm sorry?
You'll send an email.
Yes, it'll be in the newsletter, our Facebook pages, website, everywhere. John Calvin, right here where you are. They're having a garage sale April 21st, 8 to 2. We like to try to give back to the church because they do offer us this facility every third Thursday of the month, and they do it, just to contribute to Just Moms STL.
I can't believe we have to have this up here.
Disclaimer. So I'm just going to go ahead and read this. All right, Just Moms STL, Karen Nickel and Don Chapman are neither involved in litigation nor endorsing any particular law firm. With that in mind, we always want to ensure you have the opportunity to make choices that are best for you and your families, and that includes providing information on events, meetings, publishings, etc., that encourages informed decision-making. Just Moms STL are not endorsing any crowdfunding sources, billboards, home buyouts, medical expenses. If you wish to donate to Just Moms STL, you can do that through our website. There's a donate button. We don't care if somebody's going to try to put a billboard up or sell t-shirts or whatever. We just want to make sure everybody knows if that type of stuff is out on our Facebook page, that we're not the ones taking the money for that, or if we ever do anything like that, we would for surely let you guys know. We do have a GoFundMe. Just Moms does have a GoFundMe out there, and it is the Just Moms STL. Okay, I think I'm going to turn it over to Dawn.
Can I see hands real quick? How many people are new to this? Okay, so when I say new to this issue, how many of you knew that we processed uranium for the first bomb in the Manhattan Project? Okay, so some of you knew, but you didn't know kind of the history. So I wish I could take credit for this timeline, but I cannot. We're going to go through a brief timeline here. It's very quick, but it gives you an idea because, let me ask this, how many people saw Atomic Homefront and through that became aware of this issue? Wow, okay. So a lot happened before the filming of Atomic Homefront started and after the filming stopped, okay? So when you guys finished Atomic Homefront, we're not in that same place anymore. So this will kind of give you an idea, and then in the middle of it will kind of show you when Atomic Homefront started filming and then when it ended, so you can kind of see the progression. World War II era nuclear weapons waste is created. That is a picture of the airport. That is right next to Coldwater Creek. If you're familiar with Coldwater Creek, that is how Coldwater Creek got contaminated. All those nice gallon drums and all that radioactive contamination got rained on, wind blown. Right across the street from that site is the Berkeley ball fields. If you're familiar or know anybody that played on those ball fields, they are now contaminated. If you go by McDonald Boulevard, you're going to see them digging it up. They're cleaning up radioactive waste off those fields. This picture here shows how it got there. Deb, can you go to the next slide? My clicker's not working.
Yep.
Yes,
I
yes.
think it's on there.
Deb, is it working?
It's hung up, hang on.
Okay, nuclear materials change hands. We're gonna go kind of quick. More than 40,000 tons of contaminated, oh, slow down, Deb.
Yeah, I'm trying to get it to stop, hang on.
Too fast, too fast.
Can you stop it, Deb?
I'm getting back up there, hang on. Sorry, guys.
All right.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work, that's okay, Deb.
Okay,
All right, I'll look back at West Lake.
get up to where we
World
were
War
at.
II area, nuclear materials change hands. Nope, see, it's going too quick.
Well, I moved it.
Okay, it's moving by itself.
Yeah. Okay, try it.
Okay, I'm just gonna ad lib it then.
Yeah.
So, yep, oh, I know I can do it. I can sleep and breathe this, literally. So,
Can you fix
Donna
it?
Malincrot got a contract with the federal government
Yeah.
and processed nuclear weapons
Yeah, go ahead
waste,
and click it.
uranium from the Belgian Congo. That part's really important. The uranium that was processed downtown
This is my-
Malincrot,
This is the wrong.
mid-40s, late
one to be
50s,
up.
did not come
Okay.
from these United
This
States.
is-
The reason it's important is because when we talk about finding radioactive waste in people's homes, in their backyards along the creek, at these sites,
Right.
this
No, I had
particular
it set on a
waste has a
timer
thumbprint,
earlier,
like a DNA, like
and
a
it wouldn't let
fingerprint.
me
It's very unique.
Turn it
Once
off
you
the
find this
timer.
waste, you can look at it under an electron microscope.
well, now
You
you
know
have
what
it up
you
there,
got,
so
you
she
know
can
it's
just
not
do it.
native to the United
So
States
see,
of America.
it's going to
Does
move
that make
itself.
sense?
Yeah,
So it's
don't.
not as though
Go back to it.
anybody can look
No,
at you and
see,
say,
what I'm saying
well,
is
but
it's
you know,
set
there's
up to
uranium.
automatically
Yeah, there's
do it
background.
because
Okay,
it's in the
this-
transition.
No, that's not what this is. And it's, and
Because
you
I was
can
trying-
very quickly see that.
I was trying to do that and it
on
wasn't.
microscope. From there,
On mouse
it was
click,
top
click it down.
secret.
There you go.
How many of you heard of
And
Hanford
unclick
and all
that.
the other sites across the United States? Hanford,
Okay.
Savannah
Yeah, it should
River,
work.
Rocky
Okay.
Flats. Those are
Okay.
places where it
should
wasn't
work.
top secret.
Okay,
Not that that's
thank
any
you. It's
better.
just been so
But-
No, no,
frustrating.
that's
It
fine.
was
That's
top
why I wanted to come help you. I didn't mean to be
So
bossy,
that
but
is
No, no, see,
why
it's still
a
saying
lot
it's
of you
flying.
just found out through Atomic Home
let me
Front.
see this.
St. Louis is pretty good at keeping its secrets. It went from downtown Malincrot out to the
There
a
it's
piece
not.
of land right next to the airport, right
Let me
next to
just do
the
it this
water.
way now.
Yeah,
From there, it went just a little bit further
Okay.
It
north,
stops.
also
You got
along
it.
Coldwater Creek, to a
Yeah.
site called Blvd
And
Avenue.
slideshow.
From there,
See, it devolved.
that,
back
at
to
that
this.
point, it left
You need to save
Malincrot's
it.
hands and became Cotter Corporation's
Okay, so it
responsibility.
should be okay.
From that point, Cotter sent some of the
So
waste
why
up to
can't- why
Canyon
won't it
City,
be up there
Colorado.
now?
They have
Oh,
kind of a
should
sister
start.
site, Superfund
No,
site
why
up
is it
there.
not up there?
We're in
oh,
contact with
because
some
I
of those
used to
people.
click on
What was
Within there.
left
the up.
was
go up,
heavy, it was
the little-
wet, it had sat out in piles out at the
Yeah, you
airport
do
and
that.
at Laddie. What's really important for you to know when you're talking about people that have been exposed, anybody here been exposed to Coldwater Creek?
So see, it's
Lots
still
of
on
people.
timer.
Okay, so these piles just sat out in the open, were rained on, washed into the creek. They also, for the majority of the time they sat out there, did not have a fence around them. So kids would come, people would picnic, they'd throw blankets down on top of the piles and lay there
Yeah,
as a
every
family
time.
and watch the airplanes land, that sort of thing.
Now here,
I know,
let me do this.
It's horrifying,
I
but
can
it's
do
true.
it.
We have
Take-
stories. So
take
from
this
there,
out.
what was left, plus 12 to
I'll go
18
to the
inches
website
of
itself.
horribly contaminated soil
And get
at
it.
the site was scooped up and illegally dumped at West Lake Landfill in 1973. So the waste at West Lake Landfill has been there since
Thank you for
1973.
it.
Approximately some 2,600 dump truckloads and pickup trucks and any kind of vehicle with a back end that they could hire anybody to dump a load. When it was dumped at the landfill, it was talked about and presented as clean fill dirt. The reason this is important is because landfills use dirt, clean fill dirt, every day to bury a load. So this stuff ended up in pockets and on the surface of this landfill. And it's pretty much been there ever since.
That's fine, too.
There were
Why is it
workers
not
at the
letting me?
site, some who are present tonight, who were not told what this waste was. There were no signs to stay out of the area. So this site was heavily manipulated from 1973 on. How many of you have driven past West Lake Landfill? Okay, so you probably have noticed trees on the site.
My extension.
Any place you see trees is surface level radioactive waste. Those trees are on the site because nobody can get up there and manipulate that area. They've been allowed to grow. That's surface level. There's a lot of under the surface level all throughout the site in two main areas that we know.
Just get that up there, on there.
If you're paying
It's
attention,
not doing it on. That's what it is.
Administrator Scott Pruitt just came out with a decision to partially remove some of the radioactive waste at the
And then
site.
save.
All that
Let me
was just
see
in the
if
past
it
2
pops
months.
up on
So,
any of the.
right as Atomic Home Front
Put
Building,
it up there now.
we also got a decision, or a proposed decision handed in our lap. For those of you that are present right now, that is not a
Nope,
decision,
still
it is
fine.
a proposal. So we are in a legal public comment period. What that
Yeah,
means
it's
is
not going to.
legally, the EPA solicits our comments
She's already
on
got
what
through
we
it.
would like to see happen
Let's just
at the
get it,
site, what the overall
change the timeline.
cleanup should look like for
I'm
this
not gonna worry about
radioactive
you,
waste.
sorry.
Okay.
It's very
Thank you
important
for your help.
that everybody in this room, we'd like to see make a public comment. It does not have to be detailed. It can be 1 to 2 sentences. You can say whatever you want it to say. You know, dig deeper, remove the people living closest. Those are 2 of the things. Our stance is just non-STL. I know a lot of you have heard of option 4 and option 7. That to us is ridiculous. That is the part of Superfund that we've been fighting now for almost 5 years that's broken. What we would like to see EPA do, I don't care what number they assign it, we want them to dig up as much of it as they can get. And we know they can do more than 16 feet, which is the proposal. So we're asking them to dig up as much as they can get, remove it off-site to a licensed facility where the other radioactive waste from the ball fields that are being dug up to everything along Coldwater Creek has and continues to go. And we're also asking that the people that live closest in Spanish Village and the mobile home park be offered relocation. Does that make sense? All those 3 goals?
So you are not for alternative 7?
Alternative 7 and alternative 4.
They went fast.
Huh?
They went fast in that meeting.
They did.
Do we have that somewhere, what they presented? Did they put it on the website?
We do,
Yeah.
and here's the thing, and I'm just gonna be very honest with you guys, we have never pulled any strings with this. Read alternative 7, it's not what it looks like.
Yeah, well, that's why I noticed,
Right.
I'm like, I haven't finished my letter because I'm not sure I want to put that in there.
What we're putting, so to assign a cleanup number to this site is and one cleanup number is very ridiculous to us, because this is a complicated site, each area has its own issues. Sorry, can you guys hear me okay? Each area has its own issues. We are asking them to go deeper where they can. And we know there are places they can go deeper. We are, you know what I'm saying? They can go deeper on this site in places than 16 feet, and they know that. They came up with a 16-foot depth to fit a certain area known as the mound, or the muffin top. Please don't say that word. Can we just all agree, not yes, to use mound? Okay, we're gonna just change that eventually, but that's like legally on an EPA document, by the way, muffin top. Engineers can't put that word.
Now, then for the EPA proposed that, looking at you guys want, I know everybody here probably wants full removal of it. But with the time frame they didn't get with that, versus how close the fire is, would they even have enough time before the fire reaches the radioactive waste, even if they do a full excavation?
The fire is right now 600 to 700 feet still, and it's. I will never use the word stable. To use the word stable in a fire is kind of an oxymoron. As long as it burns, it's unstable. But it is staying right where it is right now. That doesn't mean that another one won't start or this one won't move.
But even with the time frame that they're giving, even if they do a full amount, will that be enough time before the fire actually hits them?
That's a great question. Right now, the fire doesn't appear to be moving. It appears to be staying right where it is.
But it's still beyond the, it's a building into the North Quarter already, right?
No, I think it's right on the edge of the North Quarry. There may be a heat front that's creeped out front.
Okay.
And I'm gonna, since we're on this topic, since there's a lot of new people, I will tell you, Matt, can you raise your hand? The Assistant Fire Chief's in the room. If you only knew how much of what we do is babysitting that friggin' fire. And it is a fire, right, Matt? It's a fire. You know, it's weekly data, it's looking over it, it's, you know, watching oxygen levels, calling Matt, calling the state of Missouri. So there are a lot of eyes on that, but what I want to tell you guys is as much as you're probably focused on the radioactive waste, don't keep your eye off the fire either, because there's two different things happening at this site that are critical, and they can, yes.
So if they dig deeper, how far down is the fire? Like how many feet down is the fire?
The fire is, it depends on the area. It is 250, 350 feet deep quarry. It's a horizontal fire, but it's also a vertical fire. So it just depends on the area. Right where they want to do digging, the area they're concerned with is 90 foot deep. It's called the mound, and that is the deepest part that they're finding radioactive waste.
So if they dig there and we start moving as they're digging, doesn't oxygen feed fire? So if we dig, will that feed oxygen to the fire?
It's kind of the problem, but it's also, look, we're just going to be very honest here. We're being told that that is the reason they don't want to dig in that area. We're also being told by people that they might be able to go deeper, but it's not without risk. And, you know, that there's different things they may be able to do if they decide to dig there. They certainly would have to move a lot slower, certainly would be more expensive, but it would also increase the risk. And what we're telling you guys is the same thing that we're being told, which is you're going to have to make your own decision. There is no such thing as 100% everything will go at this site. But there is absolutely no reason why they can't get more than is on the paper right now. There are other areas they can dig in and certainly get it down to 7.9 picocuries, down to a federal allowable level that doesn't pose a risk to this fire or another one starting. So we're definitely asking them to do that. It's kind of up to you guys, because you all can write your individual comments on what you feel with that other area.
So where are those trucks buried?
There's a guy that knows.
There is a guy that knows in the room where the trucks are buried.
I mean, are they close to the fire? And if we start digging, are we gonna like puncture that and?
I don't know, but I think what I would say with the trucks, and I think if anybody, you guys, are y'all nodding your head, you kind of heard that there's 2 buried semis?
No.
Yeah, there's a worker that has come forward and has said that he knows where 2 semis were buried at the site. He saw them be buried. It doesn't shock me, and it shouldn't shock you, because this was kind of the Sojay. It was a big hole in the ground where everybody brought every bad thing that they could think of in St. Louis, because none of it was illegal. And I think that what it does is it just kind of goes to show everybody that we still don't know as much about this site as we should. And that's something that we've been fighting now for 5 years. I would love for them to dig holes all over the site and do a grit test over the whole thing and be able to tell you once and for all, but...
Right here, don't. I wanted to clarify a question that was asked earlier about what number to pick. So people were saying 4 or 7, and what I'm hearing you say, and this is my understanding, is that we want 7, but we want more than 7. So whenever you make your comments, if we had to choose of the ridiculous things they gave us, we would choose 7. I'm just making sure I'm understanding.
Kind of. 7 has some grading issues in it that I'm personally not comfortable with, so...
So 7 and more, and then you say what the more is, so that saying basically that your options are not acceptable, we want more.
What, it's 4 and
Four and
more
more
for us. It's 4 and more. 7 has some grading issues. The thing that I have a problem with...
4 and more?
Right. Here's the problem. You have 3 distinct areas that we know of. We're going to push the trucks off to the side for 1 second, because we'll get back to that. We have 3 known areas that we know of. When we started this 5 years ago, there were only 2 known areas of radioactive waste. Now there's 3, because thanks to everybody that's been involved in this pushing, they decided to go outside of their boundaries and test for radioactive waste, and they found it, and they found it deeper in the quarry. So now there's really 3 areas. That mound is the 3rd. My issue is to take one decision at this site and try and lay it upon the entire site in 3 different areas that have 3 different issues. It's really ridiculous. They all have different types of waste that the radioactive waste is mixed with. They're at different depths. One's much deeper than the other 2. So the issue that I had is that when they came in and did number 4, what they did is they picked a solution that would fit one area, which was the mound, because they're worried about going deeper. And they tried to take that one and blanket the whole rest of the site with it, which is ridiculous, because these other 2 areas up here can certainly be cleaned up down to the federal legal levels, which are the levels that they're legally allowed to force them to clean up to, with no issues. This one area we recognize has issues, but we are still trying to figure out what those issues are. We're trying to talk to as many people as we can to get their opinion on those issues, the state, EPA.
So 4 does not include the other 2 sections that you're talking about?
4 includes the other sections. 4 is 16 feet deep, no matter where you're digging on this site, which is ridiculous, stupid. You could go down 50, 60 feet in those other areas and not have an issue. So they picked that because they didn't want to go lower than 16 feet in this one area. So that's our issue with taking one number and putting it across the site. So what we're telling them to do is go into the areas where they can go deeper and go deep. Come back to us in this area and talk to us about, just talk to us. What are the risks? I'd like to see and understand these risks that are being talked about. We believe they're there, but as a community, I think that we can handle finding out the truth. That's where we are.
We're over here.
Okay.
I just wanted to clarify for especially the new people. It is a big concern, the fire hitting the known waste, but the entire site has not been tested. The ground that's burning right now has never been tested. We have been fighting for it for years and years to have them test that ground. It has never been tested. They cannot tell us whether or not there's radioactive waste there or not. It's something that the CAG is working on because Albert Kelly did tell us this past October, he promised this community that they would test that ground. They still have not. So we don't know what's going out in those flares. We have no clue.
My question kind of feeds off of what you just said. So how much area is untested at this point?
Quite a bit. I'll show you.
A lot.
This is a good map to kind of give you guys. This area right here, I'm going to try and do it on both, okay? This area right here, that's area 2. That's all radioactive. This whole thing right here, that's area 1, okay? Muffin top, mound. I'm going to get a shirt. We need shirts to wear to the next EPA meeting. Right, the mound would be right here. It's in a deeper part of the quarry. The fire is down here. None of this has been tested for radioactive waste. The CAG and the community group are trying to get this. We do have confirmation from Albert Kelly that he is willing to test in that area. Right here in this area. This whole area over here, to our knowledge, has never been tested, nor has this area here. We've heard rumors of this area. This is a demolition landfill. We've heard rumors that Pruitt-Igoe is buried there. Possibly some of the Carrollton homes are possibly buried in that area. The reason we're pushing for this whole site, besides the obvious, that should be obvious, is this is the area up here, area 1. This is the area that in 1973, when the trucks brought the radioactive waste in and said it was clean fill, this was the staging area. And then from here, any place that needed to be covered, they would come up, scoop up clean fill dirt, not clean, but what they thought was clean, and take it to wherever they needed it to be. The entire site, the entire boundary of the site is a Superfund site. For whatever reason, this area though that's on fire is under the jurisdiction of the state of Missouri. So that's been a major issue that we've had as well.
And Don, I just want to point out that for years the EPA was telling us they knew where all the waste was. And we asked for more testing, and it fell on deaf ears. Finally, they decided to investigate an isolation barrier. And in that investigation, they did more testing. And guess what they found out? They found out that where we were concerned there would be radioactively impacted materials, there were. And they were wrong. That the waste was not isolated, that it had moved down the site. And so this is why we're pushing so hard for additional testing further down.
Right, now here's the problem with the additional testing. It's great to have characterization rights of this area, but the problem is it's deep. So anything they find that's deeper than 16 feet as of right now, it doesn't matter. Because they've decided under this proposal they won't go deeper than 16 feet.
I
So,
thought they said that if they found it, they would.
no, they did not. Nope, nothing. It doesn't matter if they are digging under this proposal in any of these areas. They're digging. Once they hit 16 feet, they're done. It doesn't matter if it's right below where they are and they can scoop it up. They are not going to go deeper than 16 feet under this proposal. So that is an issue.
You're not testing to see what's left.
We don't know. This again, this is a proposal. If you guys read the Post-Dispatch, did you guys see that Administrator Pruitt has now said that he believes basically they're going to end up digging deeper? Well, that's what happens when 1,500 people show up at a public EPA meeting. They get a little freaked out and they decide to do a little bit more. So right now, it matters. Your comments, your showing up to these things, your input to EPA, they matter.
Okay.
Hang on.
We will put a link up to comment. We will show you where to get there.
Okay, I just wanted to have you remind people when the fire started. And the fire department did not know from Republic Services. We're talking a lot about EPA tonight, but we also have another bill in too, and it's called Republic Services. They knew about a fire before the fire department did. I'd like to know where the fire was 5 years ago when they could have maybe dug that out. But Republic Services said it was fine, it's a managed state. That's just like saying muffin top to me. It's not a managed state. And now where are we at? So that's my question.
Now we're in the middle of a catch-22.
Could they have
Yeah.
taken that out 5 years ago when the fire department and everybody else said this is bad, and they said no, it wasn't? So
5 years ago, when we were dealing with this, and Matt, you can feel free to speak on this if I'm right or wrong, but there was a report. The state's fire expert, Todd Thalhammer, did come out 5 years ago, probably a little bit before that, and wanted to put this fire out before it had fully engulfed this entire area. And had we been allowed to, I think we'd be in a different position than we're in right now.
Right, we started having problems in 2009, so this is almost 10 years old now. We were made aware that the fire was happening just by happen chance,
This
really.
is Assistant Fire Chief Matt Levanchi. Yeah, stand up.
So in 2009, the Missouri Department of Natural Resources learned that there was gas migration leaving the landfill site. So as everybody knows, you can smell the stink that's in the air. The smell, it migrates, okay? Well, this was happening underground because the quarry that the landfill sits in is a limestone quarry. And geology tells us that limestone quarries are very porous, which allows gas, oxygen, whatever else is in, including the leachate or the groundwater, to move away from the site. So what we assume happened, and nobody has confirmed, but they also do not deny, is when they got this letter that said you have gas that's leaving your landfill, what we assume happened was that they went out, because there's wells all over the landfill, they went out and they turned up the vacuum. Well, common logic doesn't prevail in this situation. You can't just approach a landfill and say, well, if I turn up the vacuum, we'll pull the gas back in. What they actually did was they started pulling some of the gas back in, but they started pulling oxygen through the grass, through the dirt cap that was there. So what happened with that, it was providing one of the essential elements to sustain combustion. So as trash decomposes, it gets hot, depending on what's in there. And I can't really say hot. It gets heated up. So when you induce oxygen into a very oxygen-reduced area with heat, the presumption is that's how the fire started. And I heard earlier somebody asked a question about how big is the fire and where is it? The best way to explain the fire, it's wormhole is what it's doing. It's not burning all inclusively. It's not one big, it's not Hades down underneath the ground of a big molten pit. It's wormhole. So the best way that I describe when people ask about it is if you take a cross-section of an anthill, the tunnels that the ants have made on that cross-section. Has everybody seen something like that? I know what I'm talking about? That's what this fire looks like if you were to cut it in half and pull half of it away. It's wormholing in all different directions, so it's not full thickness. In some cases, we had data that showed us that the fire was anywhere from 12 to 9 feet from the surface. Other data, and this is all based on temperature monitoring probes, gas extraction well, the heat that we get from that, but most of the time it's from temperature monitoring probes, which every 9 feet there is a circuit that measures temperature. And they put these things all the way down into the bottom of the landfill. So you can have in one temperature monitoring probe that goes straight down, you can have temperatures of 250 degrees, which is enough to sustain combustion, just so we can put that out there, because we've been argued that the temperatures aren't hot enough, it's not really a fire. I call BS, it's a fire. Just because you can't see the smoke or you can't see the flame doesn't mean that it's not combusting, it's not doing what a fire does. How many times have we had a barbecue pit or a barbecue at our house? We have the Weber kettle out, right? Blaze up the charcoal, put the lid on, and after about an hour you come back and you take it off. There's what? There's no smoke. There's no visible flame. You knock the dust off those coals, what's going to happen? It flares up, right? So that is what the scientific principle of what is happening under the ground at this landfill today. Now, I agree with what Don said earlier, is that in the last 2 years, the data that we review, and I have reviewed this data for 7 years now, on a weekly basis. For the last 2 years, for whatever reason, this community has caught a break. And it's very rare that we catch a break when it comes to dealing with this landfill. But the fire has not moved any further north than just the very beginning of the neck area that they show on the...
Wow, can you show the other picture, Deb?
Okay.
Right
yeah,
there.
so she's going to highlight there. The neck, it's actually right there at the top where you're at right now. That's about where this fire is. Doesn't mean that it's not in the south. And you know, you'll hear Republic Services come out and say, our data indicates that the fire is going out. But it's true. The temperatures throughout the South Quarry are going down. Our concern is, as the fire department, is that the temperatures in the neck, where we're most concerned about, I don't point to the North Quarry, where that star is now. That's north. I'm sorry, the South Quarry. That's where the fire is most intense. Honestly, I really don't care what's happening in that part of the quarry because the radiation is on the other side. So our concern from day one has been to monitor the fire as it advances toward the radioactive material. For 2 years now, that fire has really not moved any further north than maybe an inch or two in the last 2 years. That is great news. It's buying us time, because if it were moving at the rate it was when we first became aware of it, we're talking it was moving 3 to 4 feet per month, which was huge. And it scared the living daylights out of not just the moms in this community, it scared the daylights out of the fire department, because we do not have jurisdiction to go in and do anything. We fought about this until we're blue in the face. The Missouri Department of Natural Resources and the state of Missouri's Attorney General's office, because there's ongoing litigation and there's regulations that are imposed to that, we don't have the authority to go in and do anything about the fire. Now, somebody had asked just a little bit ago, was there something we could have done way back when we first found out about this? Myself and Todd Valhammer sat down and came up with a plan that at the time when this fire, when we first learned about it, was just a little indention at the very top of the dome. Everybody that has seen the landfill recently, you all know what it used to look like. It was huge. I had somebody that explained it to me. They described it, it looked like the Edward Jones Dome. because it was that big. It was geographically, it was an engineered site, it was symmetrical, it was supposed to be like that for the next 1,000 years. Well, the fire kind of, you see what has happened with the fire in the consumption of the trash is that thing is falling down into the quarry, basically is what's happened. So yeah, when we first learned about it, the fire was not all-encompassing the South Quarry. It wasn't that big anthill. It was a small pocket where it was near a well where they drew, what we believe, they drew in some oxygen into that area, heated up, and it started a self-sustaining combustion event. At the time, you know, one of the things is people ask the question, why don't we just go in and dig it up and put it out? It would be much worse if we went in and dug it up, to be quite honest with you, especially with the size that it is now. You're talking remediation periods of well more than a month, of smoke being exhausted into the area, not to mention it's about the 10,000 foot mark from the end of the runway, which means you would most likely have to shut down Lambert Field. But at the time, 5-6 years ago, yeah, we could have gone in and we could have at least attempted to put a damper on it. So I hope that answers the question. I hope I didn't talk too much, but there's a lot of intricate details that you really have to understand to come up with an educated guess or an educated comment, because that's really what this is all about, what this meeting tonight is all about, is that people need to speak about what they feel needs to happen in the landfill.
Is there a question for Matt? Real quickly. Stay here. No, don't go. Stay right there. Yeah, because this one works. If there are any elected officials in the room, I'm sorry we forgot earlier, can you stand up and identify yourself just so that, if you're comfortable, so that people know who you are and that you are here and that you have some support?
Jerry Renner, Ward 2, City of Bridgeton.
Thank you.
Randy Hine, Councilman, Ward 3, City of Bridgeton.
Mary Ann Solarian, Committee Woman of Airport Township, and it all started where my township was.
Yeah.
Crystal Light on behalf of State Senator Bill Shute.
I'm Linda Henry. I'm here for Steve Stenger, St. Louis County Executive.
Amy Feldman, Ward 2,
All right, got that out of the way. Okay. Any questions about the fire? Oh, sorry.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Bauer. I live in Florissant. I used to dump empty paper sacks in the West Lake Landfill. They were shoving all the dirt around into very deep piles, at least 50 feet deep, when I was out there with my pickup truck dumping these sacks. Some of this waste was on the surface. How do we know that that has not migrated into the area where the fire is?
Yeah, the truth of that is we don't. You know, the state of Missouri 3 years ago, I want to say 3 years ago, the Department of Health and Senior Services did a study on airborne emissions. It was that study that helped find out that we had over 250,000 cubic tons of sulfur dioxide being exhausted in the air, but what they were looking for were radiological particles. From what the study that I saw, and you know, again, these statements are starting to sound cliche, and I apologize that because there was no evidence that radioactive material was being released into the air through the flare system. However, you have people with the EPA who have admitted, and if you saw the movie, they admit that they are picking up radiological particles, but not at actionable levels. The state of Missouri has said that they have not been able to detect radioactive isotopes airborne through their system that they tested one time, and that was 3 years ago. So that's the best answer I can give you. Whether you want to believe it or not, I'm not up here to tell you whether, you know, yes, we're positive, but they're exactly right, Dawn. There's a lot of unknowns that we don't know about.
I have a real simple question. What happens when fire meets radioactive waste?
But you know, that's a good question. I'm glad there's a lot of new people here tonight. One of the very first meetings I spoke at Pattonville High School, what was that, 5 years ago or so?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter when it was. The concern was somebody stood up and said that it would be a dirty bomb. And that's not the case. Radioactive material, while it's pyrophoric, it is not explosive. So it doesn't mean that if the fire hits the radioactive waste that there's going to be a big boom. And that was a big fear 5 years ago. Everybody thought that the landfill was going to blow up and, you know, people would be killed and whatever else. I'll be quite honest with you, if there was some type of indication when that happened, like an explosion or whatever, it'd be better for us because we know it was happening. If the fire means the radioactive material today, we really don't have any way to know that. I mean, and that's the truth. It's the unfortunate truth. There's
We know there'll be a consequence, but we don't breathe it in.
right. We don't have any way to indicate that the red light goes off and it's now going into the air.
So there's lots of really bad things in the landfill in addition to the nuclear, and we know the smell. But am I right that most of the really bad things, including the radioactive, we probably won't be able to smell?
Yeah, some things, just because of its scientific composure, is odor. You know, carbon monoxide is a huge gas that's put off by this landfill. There's areas on the landfill today that contain carbon monoxide that if you walked into it would knock you down immediately. That's how much carbon, that's one of the byproducts of what's happening with the landfill. Carbon monoxide is colorless and odorless gas. So yes, the answer to that is yes. There's things in the landfill. We know that there is hazardous waste in that landfill, just based on the documents of what that landfill took in. Back in the 60s and the 70s, that landfill was known as Mikey. Remember the commercial, the Life commercial? Feed it to Mikey, he'll eat anything? That's how it got its nickname, because they took everything in, and it was unregulated, it wasn't licensed. At the time, honestly, nobody knew that all this stuff was going to come back and haunt us. But that's the case with the landfill. There is hazardous waste. One of our concerns, it's now a law that if you start digging into hazardous waste, you have to take it out until it's completely gone. That does not apply to option 4 that you heard talk about. They're going to dig down to 16 feet, and even at 15 feet, the picocurry level is 60. And they're digging down to that, and they get to the 16 foot, and they test it. I don't know that they're even going to test it, but if they do test it and it comes back at 1,000, guess what? They're leaving it there. That's what this decision says. So.
Yes, the fire itself. When did they first test for radiation, EPA? And when you say that they didn't discover it till just blah blah blah. In other words, that was the first time that they tested it when they discovered it?
No,
or was it tested previously?
They knew that when it became a Superfund site in 1990, the reason it became a Superfund site is because they knew that radioactive material had been dumped there. They tested at that point, but they only tested the area, and honestly, they went off the word of people that worked there, the people that owned it.
People that illegally dumped it.
The people that illegally dumped it and said, we dumped it in this area. So they created a boundary and said that this is the area, and you can see it, it's up on the board, it's up in the circle.
That little pink area there, that was the original boundary. It's now extended out to here. So this was off the word of somebody that had illegally dumped the waste.
And they knew that it was in OU1 Area 2 as well, that on the backside. Now the issue with OU1 Area 2 is that there is not a fire there. I will tell you though that OU1 Area 2 is much more radioactive than the area that's closest to the fire. So it's a bad situation. There is a lot of bad stuff in that landfill.
Two things. One, I thought I heard someone say before that there are dangerous materials that are explosive, that then if those exploded, it throw radioactive material up. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's some shock-sensitive waste, but it's been, you have to keep in mind this stuff has been in there for, we're talking about the radiation that went in 1973 is over 40 years old right now, right? So there are bills of lading and documents that show that they took in things from McDonnell Douglas, they took in things from Boeing, you know, Olin Chemical Company, you know, that we know that there's jet fuel, at least it's been indicated that jet fuel was dumped into the landfill that McDonnell Douglas wasn't using anymore. That stuff breaks down. So it goes through the same decomposition process that the trash does. So to say that, you know, that the fire hits an area where this stuff was dumped, it's going to blow up, I don't buy it. just because it's mixed in with trash, it's commingled with other things, and it has been in the process of breaking down. So,
The other thing I wanted to ask is, what's the status of the AG's case? And can you mention how much emissions is, how much they're violating the law every day and how much money they probably owe the state because of their violations?
you know, Dawn and I have been in numerous meetings with the Attorney General's office, and, you know, we found out that the trial date, which was supposed to be March 1st, was postponed, and that's because both parties are in conversation trying to negotiate some type of settlement. So
That was as of today too. I spoke with the Attorney General's lead attorney on the case today. I did speak with the Attorney General's lead counsel on the case today. They are still in what's called a settlement negotiation. Nothing has been finalized. They're just sitting at a table talking it through. The biggest issue with this fire and at this site that you have to be aware of is Republic is not a good neighbor. And right now, Republic is the parent company, but Bridgeton Landfill LLC is listed in that litigation. And so they're worried, as we all should be to some extent, that they have the ability to go bankrupt. They're limited liability, and then who would come in and take it? So they're trying to get Republic to man up, be a good neighbor, and sign their name on it saying, hey, this is really you, and pierce that corporate veil. Hopefully they'll be successful, but that's really key to this. Whatever happens to the radioactive waste, this community and those that live in St. Louis, this company has to be linked to the fire, because the fire is going to burn for another 5+ years. You're going to have toxic leachate, which is the landfill juice that's being, produced for the next 100 years. This site will continue to be an issue well into the future, and they have to be linked to this site financially.
yeah, just one of the very early meetings I sat in on before they asked me to leave because I wasn't good for conducting a meeting that went their direction. The statement was made by one of the vice presidents of Republic Services and came right out and said, this is Bridgeton Landfill, this is not Republic Services, and Bridgeton Landfill can go bankrupt tomorrow. So what are you going to do then? You're kind of almost boasting that they were doing more than that they really legally needed to do. So yeah, it's been a fight, is the best way to put it from day one. So there were some more questions back this way. Sorry.
Yeah, I have a couple questions, and I do have a couple of comments I'd like to make. My name is Carla Alsbury, and some of you might remember my father and I from the EPA meeting the other night. My dad worked at West Lake Quarry from 1971 to 1984. I have his employment records. My question is I mean, obviously we have information that we've shared, but are they testing the water in our area? I mean, are they testing it, and what are they testing it for, and what's showing up?
Yes,
because
that was one of our huge concerns from the fire department 6 or 7 years ago, and we actually had a meeting with the CBO of MSD, and we also met with Missouri American Water. So obviously, Missouri American Water gets some of their water recycled from MSD. The big question is your data that you're relying on to show that there's no radioactive material in the water you're bringing in and treating and sending back out into the system, the same as the fire data that we get, which is reported by the potential responsible parties. And that's the case. So, you know, it's been said many times before, it's like the fox guarding the hen house, you know. The fire data...
So who's testing it? Is it the water company is doing their own testing?
Are you asking, like, if you go turn on your tap, who's testing it? Are you testing, or the leachate leaving the site going through St. Anne's pipeline?
Both.
Both.
That's
Two different answers.
Yes.
Yes. MSD tests the stuff that's coming in and being recycled. Missouri American Water tested on the other end before they put it back out into the system. So,
9 years?
Have you thought about listing on your website the lobbyists that are linked to all of these organizations to where we can start looking up campaign finance reports?
you would be shocked.
Well, no, I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, my husband's an elected official, and I ran his campaign.
Okay.
To tell you, we
wouldn't be shocked. I
self-funded.
think
We
some
mainly
people would be.
self-funded, but I mean,
Right.
you know, what are, how can we help, I guess is my question. We don't live in the area, but we're still affected by it. We live in Troy, Missouri, and we're affected by what has happened. So I guess my question, I mean, we come down to St. Charles. If anybody thinks that just because you don't live in St. Charles, or you don't live in Bridgeton, or you don't live in North, if someone thinks just people living in Coldwater Creek area are spanning.
We said the same thing in a
So,
panel discussion we had earlier.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think that's very naive.
This is a regional problem, not
It is a regional problem, but I'm trying to I have a very good relationship with my state representative, and I want to know how to proceed going and talking with him on what I need to be looking for. Because I know my state senator, Jeannie Riddle, who I'm going to be calling her, I know she was one of the senators who signed a letter saying that it's okay if they just cap it. So I got to go talk to Jeannie. Because we go to the same Christmas parties, and I'm not happy about this, and she needs to hear from me because she's my senator.
Let us go what she
I would be curious to hear why they did it. You know, is it because of political?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm going to have to look up her campaign finance reports first. But
We
I mean,
did, I'm going to be honest with you, we did that 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
We went and looked at the representatives who, and at the end of the movie you can see the people that don't make comments, that weren't available for comment about the movie, they're all on that list. I mean, it's just...
okay, so is the water safe, that like the tap water, is it
Yes.
safe
Yes.
or is it not?
Yes.
And are they testing it for,
9 years and they don't test it for the isotopes that are active.
yeah, are they testing it for the isotopes, and how often are they testing? Every
They
month,
test
every
for
year?
gross alpha, gross beta. They do, if there were any of those isotopes that were out of whack, say like thorium-230, one of the isotopes of the landfill, that's alpha. So it would have shown up on their gross alpha. The problem is, and this is where you run into with anybody, even with the St. Ian pipeline, some of these alpha specs take a while to do. So you have to hold on to a sample, you know what I'm saying, let it decay into all its little ugly daughter products, and then get it. And so, are they holding on to the sample long enough would be the real question. And that's just something that we did have Missouri American Water out at our meeting. How many of you were there that night? I think we all left scared, you know, because they didn't have a lot of the answers that we're looking for.
I mean, we have short-term problems and we have long-term problems, and it's such a mess that it has many ugly faces, I see. But, you know, we travel down here a lot.
I would say a group of you need to get together, and St. Louis County, Linda Henry's here. I bet we could set up something with Missouri American Water and get a group together and sit on a you know, just hash it out behind the scenes, because I'd love to, because I'm interested too, but, and then see what you get out. Maybe you can get them to test more often. Maybe you can get them to close the gaps.
And with the water tables, I mean, do we just have to worry about the water here regionally, or is it something that could, counties with the way the water levels are, I mean, is it something that could be leached down enough to where it could be further out in Missouri? Maybe it could be at Hawk Point, Missouri, or maybe it could be...
Not yet, I would say, but there's 2 aquifers under this site. So if this site collapses and all this waste in an earthquake sinks and goes into those 2 aquifers, those go for miles and miles and miles. So, you know, that is one of the long-term issues and one of the reasons why leaving radioactive waste at this site.
Well, I would just think that this water issue would be a reason why 16 feet just isn't going to cut it.
Doesn't cut.
I mean, do you think that linking those together in our letter, I'm still in the process of writing my letter, is that something that would be an educated point to bring up with as much research as you've done?
This is a really good thing, though. There are lots of little things. For those of you who are looking to get involved, we got our hands full with the fire, the radioactive waste. These things like you're talking about, going after the water companies, seeing if we can get some better testing or a better understanding. This is a great thing for volunteers to jump up and do.
Hey, also, that leachate that goes all the way through our cities, once it gets to Charlotte, free flows through all the sewer lines, North City and North County. And if we're having a lot of rain and there's flooding, where it winds up is Bissell, and Bissell just opens up the gate and gets into Mississippi.
Yeah, and you're right, that's exactly what happens.
Right here.
Ma'am, I have a question. Maybe I misunderstood. You said that the Missouri DNR doesn't give the fire department jurisdiction over the fire. So what if the fire surfaces?
Oh, we'll be the first ones they call to come take care of their problem that they don't want us to be a part of the solution for. But, you know, we're going to be the 911 call. So that's why we've been training our firefighters in radiation response and everything else. So yeah, they're going to still call us.
Don't call you guys. Residents have to call you.
That's
Public don't.
Tanya, you're exactly right.
Right here.
Okay, I got 4 questions. What direction is the poisonous leachate going?
What direction?
Is it going down and sideways?
It's being sucked up into their treatment.
Yeah, we could talk about the leachate. The leachate, they have a leachate collection system on site. And just to give you an example of what leachate is the juice that's produced by the decomposition of trash. Everybody know about the Fred Weber quarry? You know where that's at, over by Riverport, by the high school? When that quarry is finished in full, it's still an active landfill. They're still taking trash into it today. When that landfill is finished in full, it will be the largest landfill in the state of Missouri. Yay us. Right now, it's comparable to what the size of Bridgeton is as a closed landfill. The Fred Weber quarry, while it's still taking in trash, is generating somewhere around 50,000 gallons of leachate per week. 50,000 gallons. That's a normal functioning landfill, doing what it's supposed to do. On the other hand, the landfill at Bridgeton is producing somewhere around 1.4 million gallons, 1.2 million gallons.
2 million was the last number that
it was 2 million. And Harvey and I sit on that technical call on Mondays and hear these reports and everything else. For whatever reason, leachate, and Harvey pointed it out, the leachate report all of a sudden dropped off. We weren't getting it anymore. It's like, how convenient, because it just goes to show you that both landfills are roughly equally in size right now. One produces 50,000 gallons of leachate a week, the other one produces about 2 million. It's been fluctuating between 1.4 and 2 million gallons per week. That's what's getting pumped into the pipeline that's going through St. Anne all the way up to the Bissell plant. That's
all along the Rock Road.
Now they treat it. I have to put in a multi-million-dollar water treatment facility to try to bring down the hazardous materials that are not radiation. Just the treatment facility reduces the benzene out of the liquid. It takes a lot of the hazardous wastes that are in there down to a safe level. And that's what gets dumped into the pipeline and shipped up to Postal.
But some of it is going into the ground, into the aquifer, and into the water that flows parallel to the Missouri River, and it's making its way into the Missouri River and Mississippi River also?
We have to assume that, because same way we talk about option 7, we can never get 100%. So yeah, are they pulling 100% of the leachate out of the landfill and putting it into their system to clean it? It's not possible. So yes, the answer to your question, and that's why the EPA is doing a groundwater survey to see what is being contaminated by the groundwater itself.
Is everybody overwhelmed now? Debbie just said that there's some slides that she wanted to put up with the fire, there you go, the fire and whatnot. You guys want to explain that?
Did they call you about this one, Matt?
They did not. I remember this day like it was yesterday, believe it or not, because it was a big scare for us. Because all of a sudden, everything that we talked about possibly happening was happening. I could tell you exactly where I was at my daughter's volleyball tournament down at the St. Louis Convention Center.
I was trying to text you.
And yeah, honestly, you look at this picture, you see the smoke going across the side of the road. They had the audacity to say there's no evidence that any toxins left their property.
It's the fence, the magic fence, that's it.
I swear to God, they said that. There's no evidence that any toxins left the property during this fire. Then they tried to explain this fire as being something that scientifically just was preposterous that they would even submit that was the cause of the fire. So yeah. That was a bad day for us. Then we had another fire following that on the other side. So then, yeah, there's that picture.
Did they call you for that one?
I don't think they called us for that one either. I think in both cases, a bystander called 911.
Hey, Matt.
And honestly, we're supposed to have a working agreement with Republic Services and what they call an incident management plan. Number one is call 911, but number two is to notify, for Pattonville, the on-duty battalion chief, and then followed by a phone call to the assistant chief at Robertson. And that's just how he wanted to be the one to call his guys and say we're going to a nuclear dump to fight a fire. So,
Matt, how strong were the winds that day?
I didn't hear what your question.
The wind that day, it was what, 15-mile-an-hour winds?
Yeah, it was blowing. It was blowing. You know, the grass fire that was there, fortunately, you know, we don't believe that it was radiologically impacted material, but it's also in an area that's outside the fence that they haven't tested. So, but yeah, the soot and the embers from the grass fire were blowing completely across the road into Husband's parking lot, if you know where that's at.
We're right here now.
All right, I've got a question for the moms, Doug, everybody. I'd say about 2 years ago, Mark Hague, formerly of the EPA, said that and promised that he was conducting a study where he would put radioactive material under extreme temperatures and would come back to us within 6 months with some kind of results, and then that was the end of the story. Has anybody heard anything about it?
Oh, yeah.
Don, can you talk about the ORD report? Because that's really what...
So, what happened, how many of you, I'm sure you guys still have this question, what happens when the fire hits the radioactive waste? What's it really going to look like? What can we expect? The EPA's Office of Research and Development did come out, they asked their high-up engineers and nuclear physicists what would happen. And their answer was, it's not going to be good. That lots of things, because, and you just heard Matt describe the site under the fire, lots of changes happen at this site just because of the fire. So if the fire hits the radioactive waste, that area where the fire is going to experience those same changes, meaning the ground's going to start caving in. And without a liner on the top, which we have, the darn thing could daylight and shoot to the surface. They state in that report that yes, there could be some particles released. We all know this though, I mean that's kind of how smoke detectors work. But they also talk about the cap option, that it would destroy the cap in place option. So what EPA wasn't satisfied. Mark Hague was not satisfied because that's not the answer he wanted. So they said, well, if we go and we do it in a laboratory, we take some rims, radioactive waste, and heat it up, what are we going to see happen? And the big surprise is it doesn't become more radioactive, which we already know. We already knew. But in a laboratory, if you were literally, think of a Bunsen burner from chemistry class, you're heating this up, it is virtually impossible in a lab setting to create the same and simulate the same circumstances happening on the ground at this site, the leachate and whatnot. So basically the answer is the radioactive waste will not be more radioactive, and it will not put off more radon, so it will not decay faster than it already is. That's the answer. Right here. What will it look like?
Well, we were told we were crazy for saying that it could exacerbate the situation to where there's radiation being released into the atmosphere. The research and development said that they're right.
And what you guys don't like, which is the truth, is that the answer is if those two meet under the ground, like Matt said, you don't know what it's going to look like. It's not really happened before. What's happening at this site is not any place in the country has it happened. We know that it won't be good.
Or we hope that it never happens.
Yeah, we hope that it never happens. But we also hope that if it does happen, we know about it. Because if it happens and we don't, there is a gas collection system on this site which will work against us. It sucks all the gases and emissions and it directs them to a flare system. It burns off what it can burn off and it launches the rest into our community. You cannot destroy radioactive waste by fire. So if that happens, and there are particles in the emissions, and it sucks those into the flare system, and the particles are launched right out the flares. And nobody's the wiser, nobody knows, because as somebody over here said, you can't smell radiation.
Right here.
Matt, I was under the impression the leachate collection system only covers the Bridgeton Landfill. Does it get leachate from the West Lake Landfill also?
Yeah, it's in the municipal landfill, but you have to keep in mind, West Lake, there's no geographical barrier between West Lake and the Bridgeton landfill. The same reason we say that the fire can eventually hit the radioactive material at West Lake is because there's no geographical barrier to keep one from the other. There's no liner, there's no clay bottom, there's no cap. And somebody asked, I meant to address this earlier, somebody asked about how much of this radiation is at the surface. I think it came from over here. All of it was at the surface at one point. Everything was dumped on the ground. It didn't come in and get dumped into the landfill. It got dumped on the ground, then they used it as under the guise of clean fill and spread it around. And then it would get buried in the trash cells and everything else. So every bit of the radioactive material at West Lake Landfill at one point in time was on the surface.
I'm new to this, so part of my questions are real high. What keeps these other areas from catching fire? And just out of curiosity, I mean, we know that there's some bad crap in there, so what happens when all of a sudden the fire starts there? We're just screwed. And then second question is, this public comment period, I've been working on my comment as well. Has the public comment period ever changed a decision? Has it ever swayed them? Or is this, I'm not trying to start a bigger argument, but I mean, has it ever swayed anything?
What? Question one, yes. Question two, and that goes to, are we screwed? Yeah, a fire can happen anywhere on that landfill if it's not managed properly. And it's not going to just light up. You have to keep in mind it's a subsurface, what they call subsurface smoldering event. We come up with all these technical terms because we don't want to call it a fire. It's a fire. It's a smoldering fire under the ground. So yeah, but yes, they have happened there at this landfill before in different areas, not any closer to the radioactive material. But yes, they have happened before. So yeah, it's a bad situation. And yes, public comment has affected the outcome of things like this before. A perfect example is in 2008 when Ms. Dry here was very vocal about the cap. And the remediation in 2008 was to cap it and leave it in place. Some very outspoken community members, unfortunately we didn't know about this the way they did, but they were outspoken. In the Remedy Review Board came back to EPA Region 7 and told them the resolution that you have for this site is not adequate. Go back and do it again. That was in 2008. 2018, 10 years later, we got the answer on February 1st of what 2008's problem was. It moves really quick.
Matt, my name's Kenneth Kirkpash. I've worked at West Lake for 14 years. And I've been a contractor for 29 years. I'm retired now. I worked in that quarry, and I'm the Spanish Village, is that what it is? You're right about your limestone, but there's seams of shale. And shale is, it is a lot more porous than limestone will ever. You can crumble it in your fingers. See, we would haul it out of there and cover up the landfill with it, because it wasn't no good to crush. And there's only one way to clean that up out there. And the EPA ain't gonna listen to anybody like me, because I'm just no hayseed. But this old hayseed's smart. So let me tell you something. It's gonna have to be cleaned up with a checkerboard. You're gonna have to measure off a 100-foot area and get people there that knows what they're doing and stand around talking about it. Clean up that 100-foot area, go down, and then go to the next 100-foot area. You can't go in there and start, because let me tell you something, the stuff that's coming to the top that ain't what you gotta worry about. That's stuff that's going to the bottom you gotta worry about. And when it goes down to the bottom, but as far as you're talking about the south landfill, when I left there, that was still pouring, and they were just starting to fill it with garbage. And to the best of my knowledge, that is all sanitary household garbage. But
right.
Things that could have changed.
You know, I hate to sound like Brad Van getting interrogated by Tanya Mason. But the history shows, don't take this, the history shows that that radioactive material that was in West Lake had already been used in as clean fill in the North Quarry. And that's where the statement comes from, the history showing that the South Quarry doesn't have. I completely agree, it needs to be tested just to make sure. Because this stuff does migrate. Right. It does migrate, it's a scientific fact. But the history of it is that the radioactive material was already used as clean fill in the North Quarry. Now, I do have a question, because I have a theory of why the fire has stopped where it's at right now. When the North Quarry was filled, how did they get the trash trucks down to the South Quarry to start filling them with garbage?
They could have. There was a ramp down there.
It goes back. It's what I have been saying for
I got a question for you, Dawn. You said they...
My theory is, because I can't prove it, the only thing I have is aerial photographs that go from year to year. But when they filled the North Quarry, they had to get the trash down to the South Quarry, which, keep in mind, was 280 feet deeper than the top quarry level of the North Quarry. The hill was still even higher than that. So I have said that we may have caught the second break that we ever got at this landfill in the fact that when they came out and said put in a barrier wall, my theory is that they used gravel to build a road to go down to the South Quarry, because the trash trucks couldn't just dump the stuff over the edge.
They blowed it off in ledges and pushed it off with a dozer, and then they smoothed it off.
Right. So part of my theory is that there's some type of inert material in the neck area why it's not moved any further.
Before I forget this,
Yes.
Don, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but you said they're cleaning up the Berkeley ball fields. Where is that nice stuff going?
Oh, it's going to a license
Yeah, that's an Army Corps of Engineers project, and it's being trucked to rail cars and going out west to a licensed facility.
Out to Granite Mountain?
It's not Yucca Mountain, but it's another licensed facility, exactly the same.
It's going by rail?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what they believe. No, it's true.
No, it's somewhere.
Yeah, there's documents that show how much is dug up and where it goes.
I think they're only allowed, Donna, correct me if I'm wrong, wherever you are, 6 rail cars a week, right? They're about 6 rail cars a week.
6 rail cars per week is what you said.
210.
Funding? Yes, it's a funding issue. Certainly the rail could do a lot more than that, but yeah, that's the funding issue.
Sorry I'm late, I had to go to a union meeting, but I have a question about Alternative 7. If I read it correctly, doesn't it say that they'll clean up what they find, that they'll go as low as
7.9 picocuries per gram.
Right.
That's what Alternative 7 is.
And that's a little different than digging down so deep contractually. It's going to dig up what they find.
They also talk about, so yeah, yes, except for where they come to soils that they may or may not be able to access, which is not really defined. But we know this,
they do that. The food wrap sites, they have that out too. They've been cleaning up the downtown site for decades. But they say there's some areas that they can't find, but this year they've torn down some buildings and found the stuff that was underneath the buildings and are digging it up. Anyway, I just feel reassured with Alternative 7. And thank you so much, everybody. Big crowd tonight. That was an awesome meeting. So much different than when Mrs. Dry and some of us were in 2008. Hearing that they were going to put a baseball cap on a sieve, that was not a good solution. But alternative 7, of course, is really what I'm pushing for. Thank you.
And for those of you that are here, you know, I know it's overwhelming to watch Atomic Homefront. I got to tell you, Karen will tell you the same thing, I know Matt will. It was overwhelming for us to watch it. We knew what was happening because it put it together, and you know, we know that it's complicated. We see it every day, we live it every day, but to see it all composed really makes you angry. And I will tell you, that movie is as close to the truth as it gets. That is just the start.
And if you haven't seen it yet either, because I've taken the time after all this has come out and everything else, the first Secret City puts it all together even further. It goes into the detail of Weldon Spring and how Weldon Springs is associated with the waste that we have here. If you have a chance to see the first Secret City, I think just the safe side of the fence is the same way. So there's a lot of different information out there, sources for you to learn and educate yourself on what we're dealing with here. Take advantage of that because, you know, it's just like her and I taking Republic Services word if this is what's happening. Go out and educate yourself. And there's ways to do that through these documentaries.
And I will say this, it's a good thing you guys are here now because we are limited. We have to the end of April for public comment. I think April 23rd, am I right? Yep. 23rd? Listen, this site is bad. Bad things can happen at this site. That is real. That is true. We need to get this cleaned up. We have a limited time to do that. I don't care where you stand politically. For whatever reason, this administration has taken this site seriously. I guess an HBO film helps with that because of embarrassment. But whatever the reason, it's a gift and you take it. We have a chance right now to get this. While we have groundwater issues, we have off-site contamination issues, contamination in people's houses issues. Those are all things that we as a community are going to have to continue to push for. The beginning of cleaning up this site, that's happening right now. And that has to be our focus. We have a pipeline going down St. Ian, a traveling Superfund site. That needs to be a focus.
Has anybody talked to Governor Bryden about this?
Yes.
And what is he going to
He's
talk
got
about?
other things on his mind.
Right.
His response has been, we're pushing behind the scenes, but we're not going to be public.
Right. They are not going to go on public record and stick on there.
And they have said that.
Yeah, I just have to add one more thing. I got asked at the last meeting about the time frame because of, you know, option 4 is a 5-year time frame period. Option 7, they said 14.9 years. I was asked specifically about what I thought about the time frame that it would take to do more than just option 4. The easiest way for me to sum it up is that we've been dealing with this now for 45 years. What's 14 more years? If we can get rid of it for the rest of our kids' lifetimes, their kids' lifetimes, for the next 1,000 years is what this remedy is supposed to do. 9,000 is how long the radioactive material is going to be as strong as it is before it starts going down. The remedy is 1,000 years. If it takes us 14.9 years to get to a safe 1,000-year project, I'm behind 14.9.
Who agrees with that?
The quick way is not always the right way.
Right here.
Okay, I have a question. It just occurred to me tonight. I never thought about it before, but you said there's trees and stuff growing in the radioactive areas. What is the risk of lightning hitting some of these trees, and is there a lightning rod?
Some of that stuff
in
has
the
been
area?
addressed. I got to take my hat off. Brad Van was a friend to this community. Now, he might not have been an outward friend like Karen and Dawn here, but one of the things that in a meeting that I had with him, that was one of our concerns, is what happens if the vegetation, similar to the grass fire that we had, what if lightning strikes the trees? Because some of them were dead laying up there. And catches on fire on areas that are right above the radioactive material. Well, they went in and they put, I think it was like a $6 million project, because they'll brag about how much money they've spent to make this place safe. But they leveled the trees that are directly above the radioactive material. They basically cut them up, left them in place, and then put road base over the top of it as a temporary measure before this remedy gets implemented. So That was done through Brad Van and EPA Region 7 because he did understand that our concern is, we've already seen a grass fire, what happens if lightning strikes? Or a motorist is driving by, flips a cigarette out, and it's really dry, and it catches this area on fire. You want me to send my firefighters into an area that you know is contaminated with radioactive material. So they have removed the fuel from that area. So now really the only thing that we have to truly worry about with fire is the one that's underground and not one that started on the surface.
What did you say they put over it after?
Okay.
Road-based, big gravel.
Oh.
All right, guys, it's 8 o'clock right now. We usually try to start wrapping it up around now. If you guys are okay, we'll do a couple more questions, but we do have some stuff that we still need to address before you guys leave. So I think we'll take maybe 2 more questions. I know this guy had his hand up over, right?
Yeah.
Here, and the lady back here.
That's a quick one, that doesn't
I'd like to know how many businesses have been involved. Whenever I come to these meetings, I see all the local residents. I've never seen the owners of these businesses.
Yeah, I've taken calls from the local businesses that are in my fire district. Without going on the record with who they are, there's more than one, I can tell you that. The big one right across the street is actively involved. They usually have somebody that comes to these meetings. Ingersoll Rand, which is down train air conditioning, is a mile away from the site. They've been involved with these. But you know, and I did take a phone call this week. I didn't actually speak to the woman, but our fire marshal did. It was they had a question about how do we get our business or our home tested? How do we find out if we're contaminated with radioactive material? I'm going to be honest with you, I don't have the answer for that. I reached out to other people. I reached out to the CAG group, and there's really not a resource for that. You know, what I suggested to the lady was that she look at the yellow pages, if they even still have that. Google, you know, radiation detection in home, however it is. I mean, there's not a resource for us for that. You know, and it all goes back to this whole secrecy thing. That everybody's got their head stuck under the ground and doesn't want to admit that we have a problem.
All right, we're back here.
This is just a real quick one. If you're commenting on some things, you only want people from the area commenting politically, you know, it just works better. Was this one of those, or can you look at getting people to comment from everywhere?
Everywhere can comment. Everywhere can comment. We don't know if they're going to look more heavily on people that live and work in the area. We don't have that answer, but certainly everybody, it's a regional issue.
Comments are part of the process. Right. It's law.
Comments are, yeah, what Doug said. I know a lot of you have asked us, I want to talk about the health survey. Doug, or Debbie, can you get that up? A lot of people have asked us about a health survey. Where do we report illnesses? Let us just talk for a minute about this. You guys are really going to have to decide some of this stuff. We are more than willing to put up a health survey, a place for you guys to call in, report your illnesses. But here's the issue with that. You know, after that's done, we could put it on a map and whatnot, but that's not going to be helpful.
We need to know what you guys want to do.
What do you want to do?
What is the
purpose?
We can collect this information, and that's great. Maybe it helps to have a place for people to disclose this information and maybe find out if someone else is having this issue or whatever the case may be. But our problem is that we don't want everyone to report their illnesses with expectations that it's going to do anything. Right. Or what are we going to do with them?
It's very, you know, you could approach the government, the ATSDR, but I gotta tell you guys, government made this waste. I mean, you're gonna ask the government to do a health study on waste that they created, thinking they're gonna come back and tell you, whoops, we hurt you?
I'm pretty sure that everybody knows what happens when you're exposed to this waste for a long period of time. I'm living proof. Let me see some more hands.
Right. So, I mean, we just want to make sure that when you guys fill out your survey, we're doing with your data what you want to see happen. Now, one thing we can do that Debbie has done up here that we can see, and we already are seeing a benefit of, is people coming together and sharing their illnesses, giving a place for people to talk, And just talking about, you know, not even just emotional support, but also to some extent physical, you know, connecting with people that share a common illness, you know, how are your treatments, what are you know, that sort of thing. We're happy to do that too and create a spot on our website where it's almost like a, oh, what would you call it, like a chat, like a
discussion thread.
Yeah, like a discussion thread type, and give you guys a place. This would be only a place, you know, you could break it up by illnesses, you could break it up by areas, you know, the residents of Spanish Village getting together and talking. But as far as the actual survey and collecting of data, that part is not difficult to do. It's very easy. We can come up with a questionnaire, but just be thinking, we want to hear back from you guys. What do you want us to do with it? Do you want to, you know, Dr. Khan has certainly been right there alongside of us, and Steve Stanger. We can certainly collect information. We could keep it private so that we're not sharing your personal names, but just sharing the number of illnesses, you know, maybe even on a street. Here's 6 brain tumors on this street within this decade, that sort of thing.
Great for statistics.
Right.
I think it's great historically to have that information to look back upon for other people, you know, to see if certain rare cancers are happening in more places than not. So, Kristen, did you have something to say?
Yeah, back in 2013 and 14 when the state did the health survey by zip code, they came back with numbers that, yeah, you guys all have a lot of Maryland Heights has a huge statistical
In
increase.
63043, Maryland Heights has almost a 300% increase in brain cancers in children under the age of 17.
But the point is that they'll give you this, they'll say, yes, you have this cancer, but they do nothing with it, and they will never connect it because there's this latency period. They can't prove and link it and say, well, 10, 20, 30 years ago, you were exposed to this and this. So they might give you the numbers, but what they do with it after is really nothing.
This happens in other sites too, and that's the thing. Rocky Flats, Hanford, San Onofre, you name it. We have been in touch with some of those groups, and thanks to Atomic Homefront, it's opened a lot of doors. Maybe we start discussions on a national level with all these other communities that are seeing the same illnesses. Hey, we're collecting ours, you're collecting yours. What do? Do we all get together across the nation, go to DC and say, hey, every place this crap has sat near us has made all of us sick with the same thing, the same stories. What are you going to do about it? You made this waste, it's yours, you know, that sort of thing.
Government has liability that you don't own.
They
That's
own
a big bill.
The government owns it.
Yeah.
The problem is the Constitution doesn't give us, the people,
Lots of
any
people have written
resources
letters
to
to
fight.
President Trump.
No.
Or Obama, for that matter.
But we don't know if maybe one of those letters triggered the reason why Scott Pruitt is focusing on this site. I mean, the truth is we don't know. And I will tell you, you brought up something that was really key, and I want you guys all to know this. There are not a lot of politicians being extremely vocal about this, but there are those that will tell you they're being vocal behind the scenes. I think that's incredibly unfair, because I think you're being vocal about your story. That's probably really uncomfortable for you to stand up and share your heartbreaking story. And I think that one of the things that I would tell you that I think we need to draw a line is from this point forward, no more behind the scenes whisperings. If you're an elected official, we expect you to be vocal about this issue, because we sure as heck don't. We're not given the other option. I know. Well, and Josh Hawley was right next to him, and then Hawley is the one that's doing the litigation because of the fire. So yeah. And Hawley wants to be a senator. These are things, and listen, I mean, aside from public comment period, when we talk about a call to action,
right?
That's what we're talking about. Do you have that sheet up? Call to action?
Tell the politicians to speak up now, or we will not vote for you in November, or even in the primary. That's what they need to know.
There are a lot of fundraisers going on right now. It's election year.
What happens?
You guys need to get to those fundraisers, and you need to confront those candidates that are running where they stand on this issue.
And I would say you have the opportunity to do that right now more than ever. You know, there's a mayor race in Maryland Heights. I'm not going to get into it. You probably saw it on the page. But I would start asking these questions. Do not let anybody local, I mean, you have aldermen here from St. Anne. They're pretty involved. They're pretty worried. You've got Bridgeton aldermen. Do not let anybody local or mayor tell you we can't get involved. This is a federal issue. That's ridiculous. It's not as though any of you have a choice to get involved. If you don't get involved, then this stays the way it does, and we risk having a fire hit the waste.
We have heard that numerous times that it's political suicide to get involved in this issue. But why is it okay for two moms to lay it all on the line? It's not.
It's not. So, the other thing that I would tell you, because there's been a lot of you that have made phone calls, this I don't appreciate. A lot of you have made phone calls and have been told, it's okay, we're working with the moms. Oh no. Oh no, it's not okay. If you call them, now they're working with you. That's how it goes. Don't let them push you back off and say, it's okay, don't worry about it, we're talking to the moms. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. Then you fire back and say, well, guess what? Give them your name. I'm so-and-so. Now you're working with me. That's the answer. And you push. Because that's not fair to us. Because I tell you what, Matt will tell you the same thing. If you think we've got this under control, you're wrong. You're wrong. We don't have this. So don't rely on us or anybody else out here, the CAG, to solve this issue.
So you guys need to make calls. I would suggest right now calling Josh Hawley and asking him where the case is with the state litigation against Republic Services. We're not hearing anything back from his office. So the court date was March 6th, and it was put on hold because we have been told that they are in settlement talks. And that was about a month ago. So
Senator Nadal's turned out. There's somebody else. Can't remember his name. Help me out. Running in.
I had a meeting with him.
Brian Williams.
Brian Williams is running. Isn't Joe Adams running too? Who? Yeah, and Sharon Pace. They're all running.
Thank you.
This guy back here is running for county executive too. Who just stood up and waved. There's 5 other people that are running for county executive. These are people that you need to talk to and ask where they stand on this issue. Most of them have been around for a while. Some of them are new.
Okay, one more thing. Since most of you are new here, Just Moms has 3 goals that we've had now for 4 years. The first one is we want a relocation program for those that live in Spanish Village, and my eye is twitching. The Spanish Village and the mobile home park, 1 mile within the landfill property. And we also want...
Is relocation the same as buyout?
Yes.
We are begging, and you guys saw that picture of the fire? That smoke went straight to our subdivision. We were washing our walls, and we don't know what got in our house just from that smoke.
Yeah.
So you can't imagine what's in our homes.
So we would like for you, when you are all making your comment, to make relocation number 1. That is our top priority. Yes, Lenexa.
Council meetings got changed to 6:30.
Council meetings are changed to 6:30. Permanent?
Yes,
6:30, okay.
they're not
So-
having one this Tuesday, it's what he said, for spring break, but after that, it's every Tuesday.
So no council meeting, St. Louis County Council meeting this coming Tuesday. They're on spring break. And they start at 6:30 now. The end of the month. Okay, 20. Yeah.
What were your 3 goals?
We want the people in Spanish Village and the mobile home park relocated, voluntary. We don't care how it happens. They need to go. They live on top of this site. It's not going to get better for them. It's only going to get worse.
We also don't care who does the voluntary relocation. I think maybe St. Louis County could.
So I talked to the EPA director for our region after the meeting, and he said that under Superfund law or something, they can't relocate. Do you know any?
Ridiculous. 101.4. Yes, they can.
EPA can relocate those people right now. Right now. There is a clause.
Yes.
There is a clause in CERCLA under the Superfund process that EPA can relocate those people right now due to an imminent threat, and the fact that there has not been a remedial action program in the future. We have one now, but still with the imminent threat of the fire one.
We want as much of this waste cleaned up as they can get to us. That is a safe and permanent solution. As much of it as they can get has to go.
And there's no option that states that, correct? In other words, all our options have, 67% gone.
Guys, option 7 is a number assigned to a specific cleanup that EPA has on a list.
We're not totally happy.
No, listen, EPA can do, in fact, the National Remedy and Review Board just came out and told them this. EPA can do multiple versions of those numbers, can switch them up, add some, subtract some. So to us, this whole 4 versus 7 is ridiculous because they came to us saying, we're going to do option 4, but it's not going to stay that way. We're going to change it and do more. So then you're not doing option 4.
We can increase.
But what, so for us, to assign a number is to assign a specific type of cleanup to a specific area. That's not what we want. We want them to look at each area individually. The cleanup level typically is down to 7.9 picocuries per gram. Clean it down to that level. That's
in the areas that they can.
And so when you say number 7, it just gets confusing. 4, 7, this or that, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, they have to do that legally. So they legally have to give you options and put numbers next to them. But that, just so you know, yeah, the end result can be take a little from this option, take some from this. Does that make sense?
I don't think it's fair to this community that they put up option 7 and they'll clean up 100%, because they can't do that. And that is misleading to this community, and I don't appreciate it. I don't appreciate the fact that we had 1,500 people in that room, most of you maybe just learning about this issue, had no idea of what you just heard tonight, and they're telling people that number 7 is 100% cleanup, and it's not.
Because what's happening, just so you know, this is the other side of the conversation. And again, it isn't that we don't think number 7, if they could do it all, great.
We would love for them to clean up 100%.
Well, what's happening is you all are calling Albert Kelly and calling EPA, asking questions, good questions, and they're coming back telling people, well, yes, we can do option 7, but yes, no, we won't get 100%. And then we get people calling us hysterical because they're like, they're going to leave 10%, or the max they can get is this. And so they were scared. Then they were given what I call false hope, which is not fair, very unhealthy, false hope. And then they had to come back over here to reality, which is they have a decision to make, which means even if their EPA is telling them that even if they do everything at this site the way they want it, chances are 10–15% left behind. Now they have a decision to make. Do I want to raise my kids in a community that still has radioactive waste at its site?
The waste they're cleaning up in North County is not cleaned up at 100%.
But we have the ability, even looking at North County's record of decision, we have the ability to force them to do more than that. And I think we're on our way to that. And so that's what I'm telling you. We are going to make them get as much of it as they can. That is our goal.
In the news it says Scott Pruitt is likely to be fired. How does that impact?
That's very scary.
It's very bad for us. If Scott Pruitt, I have to say this. We were told, you have to know this is how it is behind the scenes. We were told by all 4, and these were 2 Democrats, that told us that Gina McCarthy, the last administration, was going to cap and leave this waste.
Everything we went through that you saw on Atomic Homefront
was
going to get us a cap.
Was going to get us a cap in place. Scott Pruitt, for whatever reason, has decided differently. It is not likely that another Democrat or Republican will decide anything other than a cap. So we have an option to get this done under him or not at all.
And we need to get shovels in the ground.
This is the other thing that we have been told and we have looked at, and it turns out it's true. Republic in these PRPs, they're putting hit pieces out on Karen and I left and right, but they're also putting hit pieces out on Scott Pruitt and Cal Kelly in their hometowns, in their national levels in DC. His decision to do more than option 4, he's getting kicked in the teeth for it from this jerk over here. And you gotta ask yourself, I mean, he's being beaten up like crazy. Is the next person going to allow themselves to get a beating like that? These are real questions.
Now, the White House is considering him for Jeff Sessions.
Right. Well, but the next person that they just hired, that EPA, the president just appointed, worked for Dow Chemical, who helped create this waste. So where is he going to stand on how dangerous it is and the need for it to be cleaned up? We have an opportunity now that we're never going to get again, is what I'm telling you. It went 10 years. K-Dry stopped it. It went 10 years. Now we are where we are. We have this one chance to get this site cleaned.
Okay, so I know you're all used to me talking a little bit technical, so let me just say my piece here. I agree that option 7 is setting false expectations when EPA refers to it as a full removal. There's always going to be some parts that are inaccessible. This is a dangerous site. There are some parts that are quite challenging. However, in the description of 7, it says that they will attempt to get as much as they can. So it's written into the decision that they will attempt to get as much as they can, but they will stop if it's not safe. On the other hand, if you look at 4, and even with enhancements to 4, whatever is agreed upon up front is all they're going to do, and then they will stop no matter what conditions they find on the site. So that's one of the big differences between the two. And yes, I'd love to see an enhanced 4 and have that look like 7, as long as it says, and oh, by the way, you're going to get as much as you can as long as it's safe, and not have a stopping point defined. And that, to me, is the difference between the two conceptually. So you're correct that they set false expectations, but I also still think that it's reasonable for the community to say, we want a solution that looks like 7, where you guys will do best effort, and once you're in there, you'll make the decisions where to stop instead of predetermining where to stop before you start.
I have no problem with that, as long as you know, going into it, you set your expectations like Harvey said.
There is a risk. So do you want to take the risk immediately and they can't stop something from happening? Or do you want to take the risk of them getting the most they can out of this community and have a better long-term situation? I know it sounds horrible to say that they're going to leave 30%. Well, if you get that amount raised up to 85, are you guys going to be happy? If they say we'll take 85% out, are you guys going to be happy?
This is a question, though, that you are going to personally, and that is what we are saying up here. We're not saying don't do number 7, don't do 4 for you. We are laying it out. We are giving you what we were never given, which was somebody to look us in the eye and tell us the truth, what it looks like. You have a decision to make. You get to decide what your public comment looks like. That's yours. We've told you what ours will look like. Harvey's told you what the CAGs will look like. You have a decision on a personal level to make. If they choose option 7 and they leave, if they get 90%, are you okay? I know Spanish Village has said no, they are not.
Living in a community that you know that there's still 10% radioactive waste sitting next to a fire. I mean, these are all personal decisions that you guys are going to have to make. My parents never knew that their kids were being raised in a poisonous atmosphere in Coldwater Creek. No one knocked on my mom's door and said, by the way, we're going to take out 50% of that radioactive waste your daughter's been ingesting. Nobody. Nobody told me that until 2012. So these are decisions that you make, personal choices, and that's what we do.
We give you guys the information. We give you what we hear from elected officials, agencies, whatever. You guys have to make the choices. The other thing you can do is you can call all those people. You can call those agencies. You can call those elected officials. You can find out for yourself from them just exactly what we're talking about.
Please help us put a call to action plan to where we can, if we want to sit and spend a day on the phone, we need to get that put together to where we are not aimlessly calling people. We need to have a strategy on that. I mean,
Your first priority needs to be, right now, you need to do two things. Well, three. You need to write your public comment. You only have till the end of April. You need to be on the phone tomorrow morning with Josh Hawley's office. That is the big thing, okay?
Who is he?
Josh Hawley is the Attorney General for the state of Missouri. He's also running for Senate, federal Senate, which would be over this landfill too. So those two. The last thing I would tell you, Linda, I'm sorry, I'm sending them all your way. You get yourself to St. Louis County Council's meeting. Some of this can be handled on that level. There can be an amplification, or they can help direct from there. We need that level. We need Josh Hawley. I would tell you to go to the governor, but I don't think, I'm not going to tell you to do something that's futile right now. I don't even think you get a hold of him right now. And that's just being honest and truthful. If you want to call, certainly do, but.
So we will put up on our pages, on the website, those three things. And we'll put Josh Hawley's contact information up there.
What did we ask Josh Hawley for?
Where's the litigation? Where's the lawsuit? What's going on?
How are they going to hold this company responsible for poisoning this community? It's just one sentence. What are you going to do? How are you going to hold this company responsible for poisoning this community?
This county and this city is dead. You're not going to be able to sell your home to anybody. If you live in Bridgeton, Maryland Heights, Ferguson, Florissant, you're dead. If this, what the politicians they don't listen to us because we don't give them any money. And in order to have any influence with a politician, you have to contribute almost $6,000. And there's very few people. I'm not making this up.
We need Maryland Heights people in the room.
Money is important, but so are votes.
Maryland Heights people in the room. St. Louis County people in the room. Any St. Louis County folks in the room?
We're all St. Louis County, aren't we?
Some of them are St. Charles County too. St. Charles County, be working on your local St. Charles County Council. St. Louis County and the Maryland Heights, you have two main elections coming up, and they are low. They are low-hanging fruit. You have the mayor's election, and I'm not telling you which way to vote. I will tell you this. When you're looking at campaign contributions, I welcome you to do your own homework, but as we've seen, this company, their lawyers, the lawyers for the other bad guys, they are all intertwined. So if you're looking to find a party or a candidate that has no funds attached to them, you're not going to find it. Because they give to the central parties, they give to the Republicans and the Democrats, and it trickles down to them one way or another. Now, after this, you can draw your line in the sand and say, and the other thing is, if you find somebody that took money, ask them to give it back. They always have the option of giving it back. Say, I understand you took this money, please consider giving it back to them. They can do that, they do that all the time.
I just want to say everybody here is probably very, very scared, especially folks who are coming the first time. And I want to give credit to both of you for sharing lots of information today that's been incredibly helpful. So can we get big shout
If you can manage the low-hanging fruit, if you can go for the low-hanging fruit, and if you can sway an election, and use this issue as a reason to do that, whichever way you go, that sends a message to everybody else up the ladder. Does that make sense? That you guys are serious about this issue and you will be voting according to this issue. That's the best way politically, because you're right, you can't give a lot of money.
Hi, so my name is Ashley, and I have a question. So I understand a lot of the funding from around the area here in North County have land that they've been given through community block grant or subsidies from governments. I was curious if here and around the landfill here, are there a bunch of companies that have been given? But I'm curious if some of those businesses could be strong-armed a little bit about why they're putting their workers in such peril and how we might be able to hold the counties accountable for putting folks up on tainted land.
You tell them. You tell them. I think 2 years ago, and I'm sure there's some people in here that probably attended a big luncheon that was held, and EPA and some other agencies came in and told all the businesses that everything was okay. Everything is fine. So
governments are perfectly okay with giving out tainted land to Frito-Lay or whomever and letting them set up shop?
I think EPA should come back out with those same businesses and say, well, that waste has to go because it's dangerous.
Okay, I would just like to give a shout out to Steve Stanger and the St. Louis City Council, or County Council, for getting rid of Republic Services as their trash haul people. Thank you for that.
When did that happen? Whoa, whoa, whoa.
There were 6. It started, right, okay. So what we need to do too, we need to go after these. I live in Maryland Heights. I have to pay my taxes for them to drive their things up and down my street and pick up my trash. I don't want to pay them $1. So you need to go to your city council meetings and you need to ask them, why do we still have contracts with this company that's poisoning us?
And if I may, I decided not to recycle anymore because they get all my recycling. This is so silly. But I thought, you know, this way they have to recycle the big little garbage truck and they can play in the garbage for a while. Isn't that horrible? I'm sorry. But I think no more, we are not recycling anymore, and it kills me. It just kills me. I have my, but I'm going to do it. I have to do it. And hit them in the pocket. That's what they say.
Somebody ought to call Mayor Bridgeton and ask his stance on the buyout for Spanish Village and the trailer park.
That's a good
Ask him
idea.
what he thinks about it.
That's a good idea.
You guys would be really interested in listening to his answer if he tells the truth.
I've never seen him at a meeting.
It sounds like this room is full of people who want to stand up and who want to do something, but you don't know what to do. Is there a way that we can meet the people that want to do something, meet after this meeting and exchange numbers and exchange?
That's what we were hoping would happen. So we need volunteers to take on certain things. We don't know exactly what those things are completely, but we need people to organize other people to say, hey, are you going to go to the St. Louis County Council meeting? You know, get 5 or 10 people that'll go to the council meeting. If you live in Maryland Heights, organize 5 or 10 people that'll go to the Maryland Heights Council meeting. Going after contracts, if that's the way you want to go, get a group of people that'll go to each one of your municipalities. There's a STO Rad Waste Action book. Jesse's here. Is there anybody else here? Are you part of that? No? Well, Toxic Aware is here. So there's Humans of West Lake. There's all these little groups that are fighting together alongside of us. This is not just us. We welcome other groups, you know. If that's kind of what we were, that's the main thing we were hoping. If you are good at putting fundraisers together, if you want to do Earth Day, if you want to get a group of people to do Earth Day, we can't do it anymore. We just can't. So we need people that will volunteer to take things on. You know, you guys might have other ideas, talents that might work.
I guess I hear all of you. I don't live in the area anymore. I've affected, my brother died while I was out of town, and we lived within a mile of West Lake.
Sorry.
Thank you. But this is not just your community or Bridgeton, because I live in St. Louis. My kids watched it and were totally upset about it. So you've got a group of young people who are saying, I don't live there, but this is our community.
Right.
So
we
need to, I mean, I'm looking at the fire department or the police department. You know, I'm gonna talk to my brother-in-law who's a firefighter at Clayton and say, are you prepared? Because it's not gonna be it's not gonna be bad.
One good thing that has started happening is Dawn and I are spending a lot of time at WashU, because those kids are really getting involved. We were just invited to come speak at Renner High School because a group of them watched Atomic Homefront, and it's going to be a big, like 75 or 100 kids. So that's going to happen in April. April 3rd, 2nd? Daytime. It'll be during school hours.
Have you heard from Pattonville?
They have been showing Atomic Homefront in some of their classes. No one has reached out to us, but I have a student at Pattonville High School, so I know that that's been happening. But
And what we're trying to say is, we are still, believe it or not, in the phase where we are still educating people. And especially with new elections coming up, it's very difficult because we then have to turn around and then re-educate a whole new set of people. And so, get your eye. You're going to make me start blinking. I can't look at you.
I'm making it.
I'm like literally holding my hand up.
I'm tired.
There's a lot to be done. You guys probably can get very creative. We are still here. Please feel free to use our page to organize. Put up a post. Say, hey, we're thinking about getting a group together to go to county council. We're thinking about getting a group to go to, you know, this political event. Please feel free to do that. Politically, I mean, just state that. For political candidates in the room, we cannot let you on the page just to say, vote for me. But what we will do is if you have a statement about the landfill and what should happen, then we can put that up. Does that make sense? Because that to us, we try and remain as neutral as we can, but that's a way for us, because we feel like if there is a candidate out there, or many candidates that are advocating for the right thing, we want you guys to know that.
Kristen?
You know how you were talking about having the different health things split up on the website? What if you were able to create a plan of action, like where people can get together and organize that way? Because on Facebook, it's going to be a lot harder.
We can do that.
Because things get lost in all the other talk. But if you could break it down into, let's go talk to politicians, let's write letters, let's go to council, let's do public,
we can do that on the website.
So who's going to volunteer?
I think she did.
Anybody?
Yeah.
Hands raised? Somebody's going to do something? Bake cookies? I don't know, something?
Okay.
But if you have one central area like that, we can put our names on there, go in there and sign up, and then all meet at the next council.
Debbie, and I know Jackie helps with the website. I know Debbie's working really hard at getting something like that set up. I got to tell you, you're probably right about Facebook. I'm sweating bullets just thinking we're going to go back and check our phones. It's very rare that Karen and I ever do this together because one of us is always manning social media because it is really that busy. And it has been lately. Yeah, Linda?
I just wanted to say that when you go to an elected official or maybe county council or whatever, know what they can do for you. Find out what they can do. Because if you ask for what they can do, then you've got them on the spot. If you're asking county council to do something that only EPA can do, what are they going to do? They can listen to you, but that's all they can do.
That's a good
so
point.
find out what it is they can do. Mr. Stenger has been since, I've been coming to these meetings since 2013. Let's push it up. And I've known these ladies for a long time.
Yeah, she has. I know this one.
I have. Mr. Stenger did a resolution as a county councilman for FUSRAP. He's written letters to the EPA. He's made statements publicly. He's really gone and been very public about this, and we want to hear your comments. Anything we can do from a county standpoint. Dawn mentioned Dr. Kahn. Dr. Kahn is the director of public health. He did a health survey. They also put together an emergency plan, and there is that went out to the schools. So there are.
Dr. Kahn also wrote a letter for people to take to their doctors.
Yes, I mean whatever we can do from a county standpoint, we're glad to do because Mr. Stenger has supported this effort for a very long time.
Yes.
What should we ask from the council? If we go to council meeting, what are we supposed to ask?
I think you ask for their support, because right
Make
now.
a public statement saying they support.
Make public statements, because at this point, it's in the hands of the EPA, what the decision is. So everyone's comments are very important, including the council. Yes?
Linda, if people want to sign up and speak at county council, they did need to do it by 5:45. I don't know what the rules are
It's
now.
15 minutes before the meeting, so get there no later than 6:15 to sign up to speak, otherwise you will not be allowed to speak.
Jesse, you would wait.
Yeah, so they were talking about, was it Dr. Khan that wrote the letter to protect your doctors?
Yes.
Okay, this is something that I think would be very simple. There's a million different angles to go about this to get people involved, but most of us go to the doctor at least once a year, and you have them confined to that little room, maybe 5 minutes. If you're a new patient, you might get 15. I know we're going there for our health issues, but a lot of us that live in this community have those health issues because of this waste. So if we can make an effort to try to get more of our physicians on board and believing and understanding what's happening to our community, they have a voice and they see our illnesses. We're in their offices and they're writing prescriptions. So I think it would be a great way to help.
That's a good, yep.
That letter on your thing?
Yes, yes, and we will bump it. Deb, can you help bump it? Yeah, Deb, we'll bump it up.
You can get it on the website too.
Yeah.
Anything you're looking for, like you want right now, I would go to the website because it's easier to get what you're looking for without scrolling back. The pinned post on Facebook is great if you're not looking at it on a mobile phone because it's hard to find. But there's a lot of information in the pinned post on the West Lake Facebook page. It has everything you could possibly need. But I would say for quick things you're looking up, I would go to the website.
Also, you can message us.
Or yeah, just message us and we'll send it to you.
I did want to add to Jesse's thing. I went to a new doctor last week, and she told me that my thyroid seemed kind of swollen, and I told her about West Lake. So I'm getting an ultrasound tomorrow because I mentioned it.
That's another thing. If you're feeling sick, go to the doctor. The best advice we can give you is early detection. Do not put off that cold or cough you've had for 2 days. I lost my sister-in-law 2 years ago, 44 years old, small cell carcinoma. Diagnosed in February, died in October, never a smoker. Grew up in North County, worked in North County because she had a cough. And her husband said, after 4 or 5 days, go to the doctor. I'm tired of hearing you cough. And she did. And they found that she had spots on her lungs, and by the time she died, she had them on her liver, her brain, her lymph nodes, her spine. It was everywhere. These cancers that people are getting are very, very aggressive.
I also wanted to say, like, if you go to the county council meeting and you have questions and they pass you to somebody else, don't let it go. Go to whoever they said can handle it. If they can't handle it, ask them who to go to. Don't give up, just keep going. Be relentless and just keep fighting. I've been back and forth between the EPA, the Attorney General's office, how many years now? And I will keep fighting back and forth and keep telling them they're passing the buck back and forth to each other. Keep on, don't give up, hold them accountable.
When we say this is a fight, it is a fight.
It's a fight.
It's a fight.
And let me tell you, not to embarrass Tanya, but they know you by name now, and that's a big deal because they also remember their conversations with you. You know, so when you stand in front of these people and you really hold their feet to the body, you do form a relationship with them. And it's not always nice, sometimes it's adversarial, but it doesn't matter. They start paying attention to what you're saying. They don't forget their conversations with you.
The same day I launched the Atomic Home Fund, I got my new public service bill. I kid you not. I looked at it, and what could I do? I wrote on the outside of the envelope where my address was, clean up West Lake. In the memo of the check, I said, clean up West Lake. And then on the stub thing, I said, I just watched the Atomic Home Fund, you better do something about it and apply that towards the cleanup.
Just remember too, though, guys, that the guys that are driving those trash trucks, it's not their fault. You know, it's their job. It's not their fault that this is happening.
Or the workers on the site.
Or the workers on the site. Yep. Yep. Yes.
None of the propositions have a buyout in them.
Nope.
That's what
Or property assurance. Those are two things to ask for, the buyout and property assurance. And a lot of folks are talking about losing the value of your homes, that sort of thing. Our property taxes are based on those estimates. And that pays for our roads and our schools and our parks. And under Superfund law, they can do two things. They can remove people from harm's way, and they can fix it so that our property taxes remain level even if property values fall. And that's in the law, and it needs to be asked for.
Property assurance is a pretty good plan. It's something that we should talk about if you live, especially if you live in Spanish Village, but even if you're maybe 1 to 2 miles out, there are things that you can do under property assurance that you can't do under a relocation, and that is a relocation program has to go through the Department of Transportation. So there's all kinds of rules and stipulations and red tape that you have to go through. It's our understanding under property assurance, that's basically a plan that we can sit down and devise and decide what we want to see happen, and then present it and see if it's something that they would go along with. So, you know, it would be as simple as them buying your home, and you would have the opportunity to get out of your home. They would buy your home at fair market value. You would get out of your home, you would move, they would own the property, and they could sell it again to whoever they want. So that's kind of a downfall, because if you have morals and you don't want somebody to buy your house that may be contaminated, but they will buy the property, they will hire a property management company that will keep the grass cut, that will make sure the pipes don't freeze and whatnot, and that will keep the property value and the tax base up. So, and we could include something like $3,000 for moving expense. You know, what they won't pay for is, they won't pay for your deposits and whatever. But those are just all things that we can talk about and start working on. Albert Kelly wants to know those things. Albert Kelly is the guy you guys saw at the meeting on March 6th, head of Superfund Task Force, senior advisor to Administrator Pruitt. Those are things that he wants to see. He is not against relocation. It is on the table. It's just we have to get there. We have to come up with a plan and an idea and how many homes it would be. We know that by Spanish Village there's 92 homes. We know that already. But if we wanted to go out a little bit further and not do a relocation program and only do a property assurance plan, that might be something that we might be able to get easier. Yes?
Can I just piggyback on the health stuff?
Yes.
You guys are saying go to the doctor. I'm 40 years old. I have a 43-year-old sister who just had her appendix on the 1st because it was so full of cancer. We didn't know we would have this shit.
I'm so
When we were
sorry.
kids, we didn't know. No. I'm 40. I'm now going in for a colonoscopy, which I did. It was clean, but my doctor didn't know. He didn't grow up here. And one of the nurses, before he put me to sleep, said, "Honey, where'd you grow up at?" She said, "Tell me it wasn't like Coldwater Creek." And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Well, I'm going to put you to sleep now." And I said, "Oh, hey." We started talking. And he said, "What the hell are you talking about?" She said, "I'll fill you in." She said, "There's something you need to watch." It took my sister 3 years of bitching. And they told her she was crazy. They said, "No way, you're too young. You don't have cancer. There's no way." It took her until she went in for an emergency appendectomy for them to realize there was cancer. So please, fight. Find a different doctor who will listen to you. I know it sounds silly. I know I'm new here. I know that, but please, find your life.
I can tell you that since Coldwater Creek started collecting health information, the last count that we heard was up over 60 appendix cancers. When you would find 1 in a million, we have 60.
They told her it's so rare. It's so rare.
We have
It's not
another,
rare here.
We have another mom who, a friend of hers, her daughter went in for appendicitis, and the mom begged her, please have your doctor check, please, 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 please. And she kept saying, no, it's okay, it's okay. And she finally said, fine, I'll do it. And she had appendix cancer.
Yeah, they said that it was so full, they don't know how it didn't burst on her. And bless her, she lives up on a farm in North County. She's a stay-at-home mom of 8 kids. And you know, she had a hard time figuring out how she was going to get through all this. You know, she has a great community around her, supported her, but we didn't know. We put 2 and 2 together because we grew up in St. Anne. So we didn't think we were part of it. Right. We didn't know. We just didn't know. So I thank you guys. I honestly do, because there are a lot of us who are new and figuring this stuff out. But everyone, if you do have a symptom, don't let them push you off. It can kill you.
I'm sorry. You know, this is what Dawn and I deal with every day, all day long. Are these reports from people that are sick, that have cancer, that it's just unbelievable.
Within our own families.
And yeah.
Within our own families.
Well, you start to wonder what else is related. You know, what else in the family? You know, we all have gut issues. We can't get pregnant. We have all these cancers. What? You just start to put 2 and 2 together, and you start to wonder. And then now I don't anymore, but I used to work right down the street, and I have a trucking company. No one said, hey, that bad smell, there might be shit in the air. Yep. But we're outside working on our trucks. We don't think anything of it. I watched this and I'm like, well, how come no one came and we rented, but how come no one came and knocked on our door and said, hey, by the way, those FedEx trucks you're working on out back, you know you own them, and you might get sick out there. Just be careful.
You know,
no one said anything.
And it's, you know, it doesn't stop with you. I mean, it's our children, it's our grandchildren. My 3-week-old granddaughter just today had a had a mass removed off of her ovary. And we're waiting for the pathology report to come back. It'll be back on Monday. 3 weeks old, she had a mass on her ovary. So that is what we live with every single day. Right, Grandma?
My son is 18 months old. I had to try to have him. We really blessed to have him. I did 5 rounds of genetic testing to make sure he was really healthy. 4 congenital heart defects.
Yeah, we're still going.
And
What's going on?
2 months old, he's had a heart transplant. So I don't know if it's related, but it makes you wonder. It really makes you wonder.
You don't know if it's related, but you don't know if it's not.
And you know, for the new people in the room, if you're not sick, lots of people that are fighting this that have been with us are.
All right, yeah, I'll talk to you.
What I want to say to you is that the majority of the people that live in this community and others that have been affected by this waste who have come around and started fighting alongside of us, they're not doing well. And these people are making phone calls and writing letters in between chemo treatments, you know, and what really pisses me off about the fact that, you know, she and someone else said, you know, they didn't knock on your door. For this big EPA meeting, we had 1,500 people there. We printed out, with the help of the Masons, what, 2,500 flyers just about?
2,000. We did 2,000 and someone else did, I know, 1,000.
Tell me why the federal government can't do the same thing and mail them to everybody along Coldwater Creek. And I'm telling you, and that's something that you can ask, that is something, and I don't know if St. Louis County can do that, but that's a great ask, you know. Can these, because I'll tell you, how many of you are getting campaign flyers? So let's just say this, candidates when they're running for office can find money to mail everybody in their district a campaign flyer. Can they do a flyer on West Lake and Coldwater Creek? Can they, and I welcome anybody to do that, just, and you know what, and I don't care, they can use it to run for office, just say, I want to let you know I'm running in this district, I'm running in this area, I'm concerned about this issue, and you should be too.
Congressmen have what is called franking privilege. They can mail everything for free. So why aren't we hearing from our U.S. senators and our U.S. representatives? They should send these letters out. Hey, I hear you have radiation in your water. How can I help? No, they're not doing it. Call up your senator, call up your representative. I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican, call them both.
You know,
Why aren't you on this?
That's very true.
That's political suicide. They don't want to step out in front of this. It's better if they let two moms do it in an entire community.
That day before the EPA meeting, I went to Target because I'm discombobulated like 3 times. I forgot. And then I went across the street to Kohl's to pick something up. 4. So every stop that I made when I came out to my car, somebody had dropped a flyer off for the EPA meeting on my car.
There was one of us, not a volunteer.
It was a volunteer. So these people were hitting parking lots, they were standing on corners when cars were stopped, passing out flyers, and it was not a pretty day out. It was cold, it was windy. So again, why can't these elected officials do that? It probably would have helped this lady out and possibly her sister to have received a letter in the mail saying, just something.
I live in town right now, but I'm not right on top of this. I know.
But it's too late, you've already been exposed.
My worry now is I'm 8.42 miles from this ship.
Yep.
And my kids already got enough problems. I'm not looking to get any more sick. So what can I do to help you to stop this now? Because I don't want more bad problems.
And I'm telling you, you have until the end of April.
Keep getting the word out.
Yes.
Social
Keep
media,
educating.
doors, and they think I'm crazy.
That's another.
I'm like, hi, going.
That is another.
They were called for years, those moms. Those moms. They think there's some crazy activist tree hunters. That's what, I mean, they
Yeah,
Anybody get on Facebook recently and see Daisy Buchanan's post that supposedly we make 85 pounds to make? Yeah, I mean, there is some wild, crazy stuff out there, and I'm sure that person's watching too. Check your URL at the top because your name is listed. There we are. But in all honesty, I mean, what I want you to know is it's not only important for you guys to push this issue, but you have to understand there's paid for opposition. There is paid for opposition against this. It would have been easier for us this whole time to reach people if a company wasn't paying to start a fake website and Facebook page to reach out.
Comment on both of that. So, about going door to door. It might be nice if we had another flyer about the comment.
I was just going to say, we need somebody, so what needs to happen with that is you guys be a captain of your street. And you have 3 people that will go door to door to say, hey, this next meeting is coming up. Make your own little cells of people to get the word out.
We can help come up with a flyer
Yes.
that talks about the public comment period and where to go. We're certainly happy to do that.
And I wanted to say, yeah, people thought a year or 2 ago, I went out and tried to tell people about this, and people did think I was crazy, and they looked at me at my PTA meeting like, but this last month, when I went out to hand out the flyers after the HBO movie, the things are changing.
The Tommy Front has
are starting to take this seriously now. They thought I was crazy, they weren't interested, but after the HBO movie, a lot of people have seen it, and there's a lot less people giving you those weird looks.
And
so
yard
keep
signs.
it up.
Yard signs, when you start seeing those,
Yard signs, that's a great idea. Okay.
One more thing, Jessie back there, raise your hand. I don't know if you guys have seen it, it's been on our Facebook page. She has created an awesome, I don't even know the right words to even say, little map of this whole area with her little, what is it? She's little people and, I mean, it is amazing. And she is, I think she is taking orders or selling them for donations to Just Moms. Oh, here, let me hold that up. So you probably can't see it, but it's got the arch on it, and it's got a little help, and it's got the green monster, which is the landfill, and it's got Love Canal over here, Coldwater Creek, Atomic Homefront, schools. It's just got everything on here. It is really, really cool.
It's the story of this.
Yeah, it's the story of our issue in St. Louis on a map.
Karen, can you explain to people what you use the money for?
Money for our money?
Any money that's donated to you for the flight, for the expenses you guys incur
So-
providing this for us?
So we have been to DC 5 times, so we use it for travel. One of our trips, we took 9 people from the community. Printing flyers and material is outrageous. Sometimes we get a little bit of help from the Franciscan Sisters or from Tanya and Mike.
Jeff City trips.
Trips to Jeff City, gas, educational materials. We did
That was crazy, yeah.
we went to Jeff City and did an educational thing for, what was the?
It was like a coalition of Missouri senators and House members.
So we spent like almost $1,000 putting material together in a binder and trying to have it dumbed down as possible and presentable and, you know.
This fight hasn't been cheap, and they didn't have anybody footing the bill. They were paying for it. All of it at the beginning was their pocketbook. Nobody was paying for it. And the fight's for us. We need to help
So now since Atomic Homefront aired, there have been people, we have a PayPal, and there have been people from across the world. We just got a donation from somebody in New Zealand that are donating to the Just Moms organization, and a lot of local people are donating as well. So we have those funds. We have to go back to DC in April, so we'll use that money for travel and whatever else we need.
We have to think about the church here too. You know,
We tried it, yeah.
The church has been awfully good to us, letting us have this for free. So we always said if we had a little bit more, maybe we would make a donation to them and thank them for. I mean, look, it's past 9 o'clock. We're not thinking about that right now. I appreciate that. Right now, we have. The main thing on my mind, somebody says yard signs, and my head's like, oh, okay.
I got flyers I can give you.
Yeah, because, you know, right now the most important thing, besides the trip to DC, if we go on it, and that's if, because we got to work things out with our husbands and all that craziness.
Well, I'm done having babies, so.
Man.
Well, no, I'm not. No.
No, you have grandbabies.
I had 2 grandbabies in 3 weeks.
Yeah,
I don't fly, but could somebody give you their frequent flyer miles or rewards?
That would be something we, but we're trying to, the Superfund Task Force has put up, I don't know if you guys have even read the task force, it's depressing, but you probably should because it's hindsight on what's going on at all the sites. But Lois Gibbs is meeting with Albert Kelly, and we have the potential to meet with Scott Pruitt to not just really discuss this site, but where is Superfund going in general, and what are the ways that the Superfund program is broken and has failed this community.
We are working with other moms or other groups across the nation to help fix Superfund, or at least bring it to the table. Since Albert Kelly came out with his task force material, Lois Gibbs also came out with hers, and so together we're trying to, you know, try to make it better.
Right.
When's the next meeting for you girls? Your next meeting? I put on the calendar.
This meeting? So it's supposed to be April 19th, but that is also the day that we are supposed to go to DC. So we haven't decided yet. As soon as we know, we'll let you know though.
But there's also the upcoming CAG meeting.
We have the CAG meeting on April the 9th, and if somebody wants to give out flyers, we'll make sure that you get some. And there's a few right there.
Yeah, and then come see us if you're interested in flyers about specifically the public comment period. You know, we could beating you guys out.
Yeah,
and that is something we are trying to avoid doing, because what we have found in this issue, we appreciate you if you're new, but you're here and it's past 9. If we keep having meeting after meeting, we can have a meeting for you every week because it changes that quickly, but you would get fatigued. And we don't want to do that. We want to respect your time. That's another reason why you can always reach out to us on social media if you have questions. So, you know, for us, I think right now, focusing on getting people, any flyers, getting people to comment, go door to door with the you know, the email that they can simply send in a quick email response to EPA. Here's what I'd like to see happen.
Have you guys heard from Light Cruising at all?
No.
Oh, they're going to sell, they're trying, the city's trying to
Vida
sell.
Cruzen, no, we have not heard from her.
No, and we have had people reach out. We heard she made a few landfill comments, but we haven't heard anything, and we have had people try and reach out to her. We've also had people, if there's anybody here from the city of St. Louis, we've also had people try and reach out to the aldermen in the city, because this affects them. They drink the water.
So under the,
we're actually the group that I work with, we're actually in contact with, like, on a regular basis, like 3/4 of the aldermen.
Well, I mean, we could use help. We were hoping that maybe the aldermen would get together and do a resolution and a joint public comment that maybe they all sign on to and send it to EPA.
Can we talk after this for a little bit?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Oh, Jamie.
On the flyers, does it have a mailing address?
Yes.
Because I have a lot of seniors in my area who don't have.
It has the snail mail, it has the email, I think it has the phone number, the fax number. I think all of it's on there. Anybody else? Yes.
I got a pretty good about it. I'm a lead on next door. You guys want me to get enough flyers on that too?
Yeah, absolutely. Please.
On one of my groups.
Everywhere.
When I'm handing out flyers, because we want to stress the urgency of them going online and submitting the public comment, because a lot of people think, oh, well, the EP is doing something, so I don't need to do anything now. I point out that Republic Services is mounting this huge campaign to try to get out of paying for it, and that it's important that community speaks up, otherwise they're going to win and nothing will be done.
That's another thing. If you guys want, we can have, if you want to volunteer, we can have a small group meeting that would teach you guys how to canvass or how to answer questions, or, you know, if you guys want to do that, we would be open to do that.
And that's something we can do. The church will let us use a room here. We can go to a local library. I can also tell you at a smaller meeting, kind of explain who our contacts are, elected official wise, and what that looks like when we call them, to just kind of send you guys in the right direction, depending if you want to go federal, state, local, that sort of thing.
Tracy? Okay, thank you. Good.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is that it? Anybody else?
I'm going to sit just to be like this.
Yes.
I would like everybody to say when they send a letter or a note to the EPA, we want all the waste gone. Radioactivity and all toxic waste to the 240-foot level or wherever it is. You know, leaving 1%, I mean, they might leave 1%, but if you tell somebody that there's 1% radioactivity and it's leaching into the drinking water of St. Louis or St. Louis County, or it's coming into your basement, you ain't going to be able to sell your house. So they ain't going to move here.
Nationally.
Would you drink water that might have a 1% possibility of having radioactivity in it? I wouldn't. And I'm 70 years old. I want to live to be 120. I want to see if Jesus comes in 2064. So I mean, this is what we're dealing with, and these politicians haven't gotten it into their heads that St. Louis County is dying just like the city did because of the city politicians were greedy. They don't care about us. All they care about is money.
That's true.
All the waste, hey, don't you know, all the waste has got to go. Hey, don't you know, all the waste has got to go. Radiation in the air. Hold your breath 10,000 years, because that's how long it's going to take for that radiation to go, be acceptable. Radiation into water, drink it? I don't think you ought to. Take those slogans. Run
Okay.
with them.
That's it.
All this radiation's got to go.
You guys are good.
You gotta get fired up.
I gotta go talk to you about.
I'm gonna read what I can get ready.